thank you all for coming. I apologize that we're short a few chairs, but I always like a room that's overflowing. It shows that something important is going to be taking place here tonight. It is really great to see all of you. We're not going to waste any more time because we've got an outstanding speaker from California who's going to be speaking to you this evening, and his name is Doug Olsen. Doug represents a group called State Citizens Service Center. I believe they have centers now in about 28 states. They would like to establish one here in Nevada. They've got a lot of valuable material to share with all of us tonight. I'm anxious to hear it. Some of you may have heard Doug on Lou's show about 3 days ago, I think it was, and that is the person who is here tonight in person to share some great information. We have some celebrities in the audience. I believe we're expecting 1 or 2 more, so we'll hold off until we get them all here, and then we'll introduce them all to you, and I'm going to let Doug do that if he sees any of them pop in, because he knows who I'm talking about. But right now, without any further ado, let me bring up Doug Olsen. Thank you.
Okay, the presentation tonight, we're going to be going through these booklets, and if you don't have a booklet, pick one up at the back. The booklets are $10 if you want to keep it. If you don't want to keep it, that's fine. Just turn it back in at the end. And what we're going to be doing is basically reading these are Xerox pages out of law books, and as we read it, then what I'll do is I'll explain what it means, and then we'll go on to the next page. And normally, if I have a smaller group, people will ask questions during the presentation. But usually what happens, it ends up being 3 hours if people ask questions during the presentation. So tonight, we're going to do a little different. What we're going to do is we're going to hold questions until the end. And because of the size of the group, it would be real hard to do questions in the middle, and we'd never get through all the material. So if you want to write down your questions and hold them for the end, and after we go through the material, then we'll do question and answers for the last hour. And then if people, are tired of sitting down after 2 hours, then they're welcome to leave or whatever they want. So everyone has one of these yellow booklets, right? Okay, if you don't have one, Stuart, is there any more in the back there? They're all gone? Okay. If you don't have one, please let your neighbor look on with you. There should be a lot of them dispersed through the audience. So before I get started, I just wanted to explain a little bit about philosophy of Thomas Jefferson. He said, a people that think that they can be ignorant and free hope for something that never was and never will be. And 200 years later, we're just starting to wake up, and we find ourselves ignorant, and we find that our freedoms are speedily leaving us. So tonight, what we're going to be going through is, how did that happen? How did we go from being the sovereign state citizens that founded this country to the subjects of the District of Columbia? Will the PA turn up louder, or? Okay, there's no PA? Okay, then we don't need this. Okay, I'll just talk as loud as I can, and hopefully my voice will hold out. This booklet contains excerpts from court cases and statutes to document the information given in State Citizen Service Center presentation on the 2 types of citizens, their respective rights and privileges. The material in this book is not intended to be exhaustive in scope, but rather an introduction into the subject. Further study by the student is required to become fully knowledgeable on the subject. So don't think that everything that we're covering tonight is everything you need to know. There's a lot of information that you need to know to educate yourself. What we're going to do is just introduce a lot of different things that a lot of people don't know about, and hopefully it will stimulate your curiosity to want to learn more about state citizenship. The agenda tonight is a little different than what we've got here. We're going to talk about state citizenship, historical perspective. We're going to talk about civil rights and the so-called 14th Amendment. We're going to talk about Social Security and contracting to have civil rights, the U.S. government. We're going to talk about corporations, and then we're going to talk about California, where in this case you could just insert Nevada. A lot of the statutes are similar in all 50 states. And then we're going to talk about how state citizenship status affects you personally, and then afterwards we'll talk about, during the question and answer period, I'm sure people want to know how you can become a state citizen. We'll talk about that at that time. Okay, the first page here is a preface to the 4th edition of Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, and we're going to talk about some legal definitions of words. And when you read law, you have to understand what the words mean, because they don't always mean the same thing in common language. And the underlined section right here says special legal meanings of standard English words, meanings which frequently cannot be found in ordinary English language dictionaries. Now that is key and important for you to understand, because a lot of people, you know, if I ask for a show of hands, how many people here are U.S. citizens? Raise your hand. Everyone's afraid to raise their hand. Okay. How many people here are residents of Nevada? Okay. All right. We'll talk more about that later. Okay. The first section, the historical perspective, we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence. And what did the Declaration of Independence create? In the box section here, on page 2, says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." Okay? So we have God-given inalienable rights and state citizens. And on the next page, the Declaration of Independence, a lot of people don't know what that is, but what the Declaration of Independence did is create 13 independent sovereign states. Okay, and right about here, it says, "By the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown." And so what the Declaration of Independence created was free and independent states. Now, a lot of people think, well, that's what started the United States. It didn't. That started free and independent states. Then those free and independent states, okay, the state citizens elected representatives as a republic. In the Constitution, Article 4, it's the next page. Article 4, Section 2, the first clause there, it says, "Privileges of citizens of state. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states." So if you are a Nevada state citizen, you go to California, California has to treat you as if you are a California state citizen. And me here in Nevada, California state citizen, Nevada has to treat me as a Nevada state citizen. So, and then Section 4, down at the bottom there, the United States was given limited powers, and one of those limited powers was to ensure that the states had a Republican form of government. Now, I'm not talking about political parties here. We're talking about a representative republic. And the state citizens, through their representatives, wrote the U.S. Constitution, and then they took them back to the citizens to ratify it. But the U.S. Constitution created a 14th government called the United States of America. And that 14th government had a seat called the District of Columbia. That's what we call it now. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the difference between a democracy and a republic. This is reprinted from the Soldier's Training Manual. And it was issued by the War Department on November 30th, 1928. And then shortly thereafter, these were all gathered up and destroyed. Obviously, they weren't all destroyed, but anyway, we were able to reprint this from the Soldiers' Training Manual, and it describes the difference between a democracy and a republic. Democracy, a government of the masses, authority derived through mass meeting or any other form of direct expression, results in mobocracy. Attitude towards property is communistic, negating property rights. Attitudes toward law is the will of majority shall regulate, whether it be based upon deliberation or governed by passion, prejudice, or impulse without restraint to regard to consequences. Results in demagogism, license, agitation, discontent, and anarchy. That's what we've seen in L.A. when the riots last year. We've seen democracy in action. The people got together and they said, hey, we need that food in that store more than the owner of that store needs it, and so they all voted, yeah, let's go get that food, and so they all went in and got the food. That's how democracy works. There's no minority rights. Under a representative republic, they have the obligation to protect the rights of all. Republic, authority is derived through the election by the people of officials best fitted to represent them. Attitude towards property is a respect for law and individual rights, a sensible economic procedure. Attitude towards law's administration of justice in accordance with fixed principles, established evidence, with strict regard to consequences. A greater number of citizens and extent of territory may be brought within its compass, avoids the dangerous extremes of either tyranny or mobocracy, results in statesmanship, and that's a word that has lost its meaning, is statesmanship. We don't have statesmen anymore, we have politicians. Results in statesmanship, liberty, reason, justice, contentment, and progress. Okay, there are a few good statesmen, but unfortunately there's too few. Okay, now we're going to talk about, I told you that there was 13 different countries established by the Declaration of Independence. And then through the Constitution, they established a 14th country called the United States of America. Now, a lot of people find that strange, and Bo talked the other day about how the U.S. District Attorney, after they announced the Rodney King verdicts, said he was asked the question, why is this not double jeopardy, trying these officers 2 times for the same charges? And he says it's real easy. You got 2 different countries. You have the United States and you have California. You have 2 different sovereigns. And those 2 different sovereigns have 2 different jurisdictions, 2 different systems of law. And that's why it was not double jeopardy, because they only tried them once in each jurisdiction. See, if they would have tried them twice in either one of the jurisdictions, then it would have been double jeopardy. And so, just as further evidence, this is laws from the 100th Congress, the 2nd session. And what we're going to do is we're going to start reading at the bottom of the page, and you're not going to know what we're talking about at first, but it will explain itself when we get to the next page, okay? But this was basically a law the Congress passed giving federal judges authority to sit on a state court when they're requested by a state court. And it says, the federal justice or chief judge of the United States Courts of Appeals for the 9th Circuit may sit in any circuit district judge or district judge of the 9th Circuit with the consent of the judge so authorized, turn page, and so assigned, to serve temporarily as a judge of any of the duly constituted courts of the freely associated compact states, whenever an official duly authorized by the laws of the respective compact states requests such assignment, and such assignment is necessary for the proper dispatch of the business of the respective courts, the Congress consents to the exception and retention by any of the judges so authorized of reimbursements from the countries referred to in subsection A. Well, where's subsection A? We just read subsection A. What are the countries referring to in subsection A? You'll see the underlined section there. The only countries they're referring to is the freely associated compact states. What are the freely associated compact states? There's 50 of them. There's 50 stars on the flag, and the compact is the Constitution. Okay, so that's the freely associated compact states, and Congress recognizes even today that they are countries, because if you look at the date right there, it says November 19th, 1988. So Congress, even today, knows that all the states are their own sovereign countries. Now, the people as a whole don't know this, but that doesn't mean that that's not the way it is. Okay, next page. In our country, the people are sovereign, and the government cannot sever its relationship to the people by taking away their citizenship. You have the right to remain a state citizen if you're born in a state. How many people were born in a state? Raise your hand if you were born in a state. One of the 50-state union. Okay? That's almost everyone. If you were born in a state, you were born a state citizen. Okay? Now, you might ask yourself, how did you become a U.S. citizen? Well, we'll talk about that later. But no one can decide your citizenship for you. You and only you are the one that can decide what your citizenship is. No one can decide that for you. Congress can't decide what your citizenship is, and no one can take your citizenship from you. You can only give it up voluntarily or change it to whatever country you decide. The draft dodgers in the Vietnam War, a lot of them went up to Canada, and Congress, a lot of people says, well, we should take their citizenship away from them because they went up to Canada. Well, the court said not so. It depends. If they wanted to lose their citizenship, then we'll take their citizenship from them. But it depends, and so the courts had to go through case by case every individual, and they asked them, did you want to give up your citizenship? If they said yes, then they lost it. If they said no, then the courts couldn't take their citizenship from them. So no one can take your citizenship from you. You can only you can change it as you choose. Okay, now the courts, next page, on page 9, the courts recognize 3 sovereigns in this country. And this is in 1909, the court case of Kansas versus Colorado. The court clearly recognized 3 sovereigns in the United States as the federal government, the state government, and we the people. Now, in this particular court case, they've listed them in reverse order, okay? Because obviously, the people came first, and then the states, and then the United States. So that's the order, and the created cannot be greater than the creator, okay? We cannot change our relationship to our creator, and the state cannot change its relationship to its creator. The federal government cannot change its relationship to its creator. Okay, next page. A lot of people ask me, well, what can a state citizen do? Well, this Lansing versus Smith, this court case pretty much sums it up. It says, powers remaining in the states. The people of a state, of course we know that the people of a state are state citizens. The people of a state are entitled to all rights which formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative. So if you have any questions, that should answer a lot of questions right there. Okay, now the next section we're going to be talking about here is about civil rights. A lot of people, cry about civil rights. My civil rights have been violated, this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of people have no idea what the civil rights are. Like the ACLU, they have a big dichotomy over civil rights and inalienable rights, and they kind of argue back and forth, and who knows what they're doing. But anyway, on this page here, this is from the Penal Code of California, but these definitions are pretty uniform through all the states. Where the term person is used in this code to designate the party whose property may be the subject of any offense, it includes this state, any other state government or county which may lawfully own any property within this state, all public, private corporations, joint associations, as well as individuals. Now, in English grammar, whenever there's a list, all those things should have something in common in that list. Otherwise, it's improper grammar. So this is a list, and in law, they always, when they put a list in law, they always make sure that all things in that list have one thing in common, at least. And what do individuals have in common with joint associations, private corporations, and all these other things? Well, the answer to that is that their status was created by law. okay? And this class of citizen here, 14th Amendment citizen, their status was created by law. And so in law, this class of citizen is referred to persons, not people, okay? In the Constitution, it says we the people, doesn't it? And we the people refers to the class of citizens that existed at the time the Constitution was written. The only class of citizens that existed when the Constitution was written were state citizens. And that's all there was. And so whenever it says we the people, it's only referring to state citizens. It's not referring to corporations or statutorily created citizens, okay? And so the word persons includes bodies, politic and corporate. Okay, now, this explains a lot here. This is U.S. versus United Mine Workers. It says, in common usage, the term person does not include the sovereign. Well, we already read earlier who the sovereign was. It was we the people, the state, and the federal government. Well, if person doesn't include the people, then who are persons? That should be your next question. So person does not include the sovereign, and statutes employing it will ordinarily not be construed to do so. That's U.S. versus United Mine Workers. Okay, next page. Okay, on this page here, this is the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And the Civil Rights Act of 1866, this is the first time that the government tried to grant rights. And what they did is this class of citizenship, as we read through here, you'll see that this class of citizenship was created for the freed slaves. And let's just read through this real quick. It says, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled that all persons born in the United States, that sounds like everyone. If we didn't just read the definition of person, you'd think that meant everyone, right? It says all persons born in the United States, that sounds like everyone, but then here's the qualifier, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Well, state citizens are subject to state jurisdiction, okay? They're not under federal or the jurisdiction of the United States. Oh, I'm sorry. And not subject to any foreign power. I'm thinking of the 14th Amendment. This is the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And it says, not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians, not taxed, and hereby declared to be citizen of the United States and such citizen of every race and color without regard to any previous condition of slavery or involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, wherefore the party shall have been duly convicted, shall have the same rights in every state and territory in the United States to make, enforce contracts, sue parties, be parties, and give evidence to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, convey real and personal property, and to full and equal benefits of all laws, proceedings for the security of persons and property as enjoyed by white citizens. Now, all that mumbo-jumbo sounds real good if you don't know what they're talking about. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a new class of citizens that is similar to state citizenship, okay? And that's what here it says. So if it says, as is enjoyed by white citizens, they're trying to make it comparable to the state citizenship that white citizens at the time had. And just so no one thinks I'm a Nazi, there's lots of black state citizens in California, okay? And shall be subject to like punishments, pains, penalties, and to none other any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom to the contrary notwithstanding. Section 2, and be it further enacted that any person who under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom shall subject or cause to be subjected any inhabitant of any state or territory to the deprivation of any right secured or protected by this act, or to different punishments or pains or penalties on the account of such persons having at any time been held in the condition of slavery or involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. Wherefore the party shall have been duly convicted, or by reason of his color or race, then is prescribed for the punishment of white persons. See, and so there again you see that they're trying to create a class of citizenship that is comparable to state citizenship. But the courts said that's unconstitutional. You can't create another class of citizenship. And so the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was declared unconstitutional, and the courts threw it out. Okay. Well, previous to this, there was the Emancipation Proclamation, and that was declared unconstitutional, and so then they had to make the 13th Amendment. And then they come up with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and that was declared unconstitutional, and so then they came up with the 14th Amendment. Before we go on to that, let's find out what a civil right is. A civil right is a right given and protected by law, and a person's enjoyment thereof is regulated entirely by law that creates it. So in other words, a civil right is given by law, regulated by law, and can be taken away by law. Now, that's what a civil right is. Okay? It's because the created cannot be greater than the creator. Okay? Now, God, if he wants to, our Creator can take away our inalienable rights. Okay? And we have nothing to say about that, but I don't think he's going to do that. The United States can do the same thing to their creations. Okay. So
unalienable rights. You read it properly, and then twice you said inalienable rights.
Right. Unalienable rights. You're correct. I get those two mixed up, but you are correct. It's unalienable. Okay. This is United States versus Otherson. Okay. This is a pretty interesting court case. The 4 officers that were tried for violating Rodney King's civil rights, they were charged under Title 18, because that's where your civil rights are found, in Title 18. See, there's 50 titles of law. Title 18 is the criminal code. That's where you'll find your civil rights. And this is, from this case, it says, upon the introduction of the provisions which eventually became 18 U.S.C. 242, and that's exactly the section that those officers were tried under. Its sponsor, Senator Stewart, explicitly stated that the bill protected all persons. You notice persons is in quotes there. That's making a legal distinction, it's a legal definition of the word. He noted that the bill simply extends to foreigners, not citizens, the protection of our laws. So the civil rights that the United States granted, they could only grant them to their citizens, okay? They can't grant them to this kind of citizen here. They can only grant the civil rights to this citizen, okay? But see, this is from a state's perspective. A state's perspective, these people here, these persons, I should say, are foreigners. Okay, let's read on. Simply extends to foreigners, not citizens, okay, not these, only foreigners, the protection of our laws. He added, the bill extends the equal protection of laws to aliens, okay, to aliens, so that all persons who are in the United States shall have the equal protection of our laws. Well, see, what should have happened is when the slaves were freed, the state should have just assimilated them as state citizens. But that isn't what happened. The federal government rushed in there and says, hey, we'll create this new class of citizenship, and they took them off of the southern plantations and they put them on the federal plantation. Okay? All right. Okay, now the 14th Amendment. Let's read through this first section real quickly. You'll see that the wording is very, very similar to the Civil Rights Act of 1866. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, that sounds like everyone again, doesn't it? And then here's the qualifier, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So what they did is they gave them a resident status in a state. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And you notice we're talking about persons again. Nor deny any person within its jurisdiction, there's the qualifier again, within its jurisdiction, the equal protection of the laws. Okay. Next page, on page 17, this is Van Valkenburg versus Brown. In Van Valkenburg versus Brown, this is a very important court case. It describes the purpose of the 14th Amendment. The purpose of the 14th Amendment to the federal Constitution, to the Constitution of the United States, was to confer the status of citizenship upon a numerous class of persons domiciled within the limits of the United States who could not be brought within the operation of the naturalization laws because native born, and whose birth, though native, at the same time had left them without the status of citizenship. Such persons were not white persons, but in the main were of African blood, who had been held in slavery in this country, or having themselves never been held in slavery, were the native born descendants of slaves. Okay. That's pretty clear. Let's go on to the next page. Both before and after the 14th Amendment to the Federal Constitution, it has not been necessary for a person to be a citizen of the United States in order to be a citizen of his state. See, that's a situation I find myself in. I am a citizen of a state. I'm a citizen of the California Republic. But I am not a citizen of the United States. Okay? 14th Amendment citizen. See, a lot of people go, well, gosh, I like the U.S. flag and all. Well, sure, so do I. I salute the flag. That flag is for the Union of States. And then we'll talk about later, there's also federal flags. And so I'm not for, a lot of people come up to me and say, well, gee, we should secede from the Union. No, we don't want to secede from the Union. We want to preserve the Union of States under the Constitution. But we want to preserve our state rights first and foremost. Okay. Next page. Now, this is going to answer some of your questions that were born in a state. Okay? There's nothing that a state can do to make you a U.S. citizen. If you were born in a state, the only thing a state can do is make you a state citizen. They have no power to do anything else. Okay, the first underlined section right here, it says, nothing which a state can do will invest a foreigner with the rights and privileges of citizens of the United States. Okay, then the next underlined section says, the first clause of the 14th Amendment to the Federal Constitution made Negroes citizens of the United States and citizens of the state in which they reside, and thereby created two classes of citizens, one of the United States and the other of the state. That's Corey versus Carter. And then in the box right here at the bottom, it says, one may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. That's the situation I find myself in. Of course, as a result of being a state citizen, I am a citizen in the Union of States. Okay, but the only time when I'm considered a United States citizen is when I'm in a foreign country, overseas somewhere. Okay, other than that, if I'm in anywhere in the 50-state union, I'm considered a California state citizen. Okay, now this is a California Supreme Court case. There may or may not be a court case like this in Nevada. It makes no difference because this status applies to all states. And what this does is this just defines that state citizens and U.S. citizens do not have the same kinds of rights. Okay? It says, United States citizenship does not entitle citizens to rights and privileges of state citizenship. Citizenship of the United States does not entitle citizens to privileges and immunities of citizens of states, since the privileges and immunities of one are not the same as the other. Okay? And if you want an in-depth study of that, you can read that entire court case. It's a great court case. Now this page here is one page out of the congressional record of about 10 pages on the subject of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was passed under a military coup and martial law after the Civil War. Now, the revisionist historians call it Reconstruction period. And so when you go to school, the schools will tell you, well, this was a Reconstruction period and a lot of things happen and whatever, and they just kind of gloss over it and go on. But they don't tell you that a military coup happened and that the military came in and took the senators from the states who were opposing the 14th Amendment out and put military people in their place to vote for the 14th Amendment. And so Anyway, it's kind of interesting. This is just the first page of it. I encourage everyone, go to law library and get the entire congressional record, Xerox it off, and take it home and read it. It will make you sick. Okay, now we're going to talk about corporations. Okay, in the box right here, it says the United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to a state. Okay, you got to know, when you say United States, you got to know what United States you're talking about. There's three definitions of the United States. There is the states in the Union of States, that's the landmass, okay? And there is the national government that was created by the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, and that's the national government that has limited powers, okay? Only the certain powers that the people delegated through the state's representatives to the United States, and only those powers. This here is federal corporation with unlimited powers over the District of Columbia, which is a corporation. They incorporated in 1879. And so a lot of people say, well, what if they change the laws? Well, this corporation can do anything it wants to, and we have no say-so, because they have unlimited powers. The Constitution does not apply to the District of Columbia. They have unlimited powers over the District of Columbia and all the territories. Okay? The Constitution only applies to the national government for and behalf of the Union of States. It doesn't apply to this corporation. This corporation was incorporated late in the 1800s, and so it has nothing to do with the Constitution. And so a lot of people see the actions of this federal corporation called the USG, and it scares them because they go, gosh, you know, what's happening here? They're doing all these terrible things. Well, yeah, you're right. They're doing a lot of terrible things. And everyone's going along with it thinking that they're talking about them. Okay? Okay. So the United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to a state. Now, how many people, raise your hand if this is the first time you ever heard this. Raise your hand if it's the first time you ever heard this tonight. Okay. Good. So you feel like you're learning something? Okay, this, you know, a lot of people think law books are the boring, dry stuff, and a lot of it is because it's like mumbo-jumbo. You don't understand what they're talking about because you don't understand the words. And so one of the first things that we do in State Citizen Service Center is we tell people, sit down and read terms and phrases. And so once you understand the words, then you can read law, and it makes a whole lot more sense. Okay, now, this corporation has a flag. And it's distinguished from the flag of the national government, which is a representative republic of the Union of States. Okay? The flag for this corporation is a military flag. And let's read in this box here. It says, the placing of a fringe on the national flag, dimensions of flag, and arrangement of stars in union are matters of detail not controlled by statute. Because you can't change the flag. The flag is static. You can add a star to it, but you can't change the dimensions. You can't change you can't put a fringe on it. Okay, the only way that you can do those things is under military or martial law. Okay, and so that is the flag of this corporation, the United States government. It's not controlled by statute, but are within the discretion of the President as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy. So when you go into a courtroom, you see that fringed flag. That flag stands for military law, and if you're not in the military, then it's martial law. Okay, military law and martial law are the same thing. It just depends on whether you're in the military or not. Okay. Okay. So this here is talking about the sovereignty of the state. And this is from the state's point of view. And it says, non-citizens. Persons in a state not as citizens are either citizens of other states or aliens. Okay? You notice what they said there is that, so if you're not a state citizen, what are you? You're an alien. Okay? Because if you're living in a state and you're not a state citizen, you must be an alien. Okay? So, we'll point that out and we'll talk about that more later. So, because you are an alien, you're not only an alien, but you are a franchise of a foreign corporation. Okay? Now, people talk about, well, you know, this citizen feels disenfranchised or whatever, you know, a lot of people talk about enfranchised citizenship. Well, U.S. citizenship is a franchise citizenship, okay? Because it is, U.S. citizenship is a franchise of the USG, the United States government, or that corporation, which is a foreign corporation with respect to a state. Okay, now we're going to talk about what can a state do to these aliens, okay? These franchises of a foreign corporation. And it says, in the underlined section here under taxation, it says, a state may impose an excise upon the franchises of corporations engaged in a business which every private citizen has the right to engage in freely. Who are private citizens? State citizens are private citizens. These are enfranchised citizens, okay? And it says the privilege tax is the right to engage in such business with special advantages which are incident to corporate existence, okay? So you get an excise tax imposed upon you if you're a franchise of a foreign corporation, and they impose that excise tax upon you so that you can participate in society just as if you were a state citizen, okay? The only difference is you have to pay the excise because you're an alien.
I thought you were talking about corporations.
We're talking...
All right, corporations are not people. They take the place of people. They're handled like people, but they are not people.
But we
have nothing to do with excise that they put upon you.
Okay, but we read earlier...
We're talking about putting excise on corporations.
Exactly. But see, the word person is an enfranchised type of thing.
Take the place of a person.
A corporation is a person, okay?
And that's
but
what they're excising. It's not people, it's corporations are excising.
Exactly. And these people are classified in the same class as a corporation in law. And we'll see that more as we go on. Okay, one more thing before we turn this page. Right in the middle of this section, it's not underlined. It says, if the grantee accepts the boon, it must also bear the burden. Okay, that's a key thing to understand because we read earlier that state citizens and U.S. citizens have different rights and responsibilities, okay? But if you accept the boon that the federal government is offering, then you must bear the burden, okay? You can't get all these federal privileges or these carrots that the federal government keeps dangling out there in front of you without paying for the burden of receiving those privileges. Okay, next page. See, we're on page 27. Now this is again talking about taxation. Okay, and let's go ahead and jump right up here to box 7. It says taxation, income tax held excise tax, not prohibited by Constitution. How many people in here have said the income tax is unconstitutional? I've said that before, and so I'm guilty of saying that it's unconstitutional. But the income tax is not unconstitutional. The income tax is an excise tax. Income tax is neither a property tax nor a tax on occupations of common right, but it is an excise tax. Now, a lot of people don't understand what an excise tax is. But there's 3 kinds of taxes that are mentioned in the Constitution. There's imports, there's exports, and there's excises. Okay? So the income tax is classified as an excise tax, and so it is not unconstitutional. But you got to understand the nature of an excise tax is that it is voluntary, 1, and it is mandatory, 2. Okay? When you buy gasoline, there's like 40 cents federal excise tax on that gasoline. When you buy milk, there is excise tax on that milk. When you buy bread, there is excise tax on the bread. There is excise tax on everything you buy. Okay, and so the thing that's voluntary is to buy the gas. or to buy the milk. But once you buy the milk, you buy the gas, you can't stand there and argue with the guy at the gas station, well, I don't want to pay that 40 cents because I'm a state citizen. Well, it don't work that way. That is a federal excise tax. That is a legitimate excise tax that the federal government places upon things. But it has to be voluntary, one, and then, of course, if you participate, then it becomes mandatory. So, a lot of people are wondering, well, how am I participating? We'll talk about that in a minute. Again, just a reminder, there are two classes of citizens. At the bottom, the box at the bottom right here. There, 28, page 28. There are two classes of citizens. Citizens of the United States and of the state. One may be a citizen of the former without being a citizen of the latter. Last night I had a meeting over at the chiropractor's office, and we crammed a bunch of people, and they're all sitting on all the adjustment tables, you know, and so I'm standing there at the end, and all these people are lined up on these adjustment tables. Of course, they didn't get no adjustments that night, but the chiropractor, he was born in Puerto Rico, okay? Well, Puerto Rico is a federal territory, and so he was born a federal citizen. Okay, he wasn't born a state citizen. That doesn't mean he can't become a state citizen. He's living in California now, and of course he can become a state citizen. And he's the only one that can decide that. But in this court case, it says that you can be a United States citizen without being a state citizen. Okay? Right. We already read earlier that you could be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. Now we read that you can be a U.S. citizen without being a state citizen. Yes, you can. And we'll talk more about that later. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more about income tax. Now, this is Cook versus Tate. This is a Supreme Court case. And basically, Cook was living in Mexico, and he said, hey, I don't receive any benefit from the United States. I work in Mexico. I live in Mexico. I have nothing to do with the United States. And so I don't have to pay income tax. And he took this all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, it doesn't matter. If you are a U.S. citizen, it doesn't matter where you reside, because U.S. citizenship is District of Columbia citizenship. That's where your citizenship is, in the District of Columbia. And you can reside in a state. You can reside in Mexico, France, Japan, Germany, anywhere. It makes no difference where you reside. The IRS has authority to determine your federal tax liability if you are a U.S. citizen. Okay, and in this next page, this is a quote from Slater case, and Slater, the same thing. He protested. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derived no benefits from the United States government had no bearing on his legal obligation to pay income tax. And they're quoting from Cook versus Tate. And then the underlined section here, this is key. It says, unless the defendant can establish that he is not a citizen of the United States, the IRS possesses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability. And so if you are a U.S. citizen, then you are subject status of the United States of America, and they have subcontracted the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve has contracted the IRS to collect for them, and of course they're collecting from the subjects of the United States of America so that they can keep borrowing money. Okay? And of course then right here it says the word person in legal terminology is perceived as a general word which normally includes in its scope a variety of entities other than human beings. Okay? And so the word person can be all kinds of things. And so when you read a law and it says person, it doesn't, they're not talking about citizens, okay? If it meant citizens, it would say citizens. And there are laws that talk about citizens, and it's common law. Okay, now a lot of people wondering, okay, well, I was born in a state, how did all this happen? Okay, we're going to talk about Social Security. And some of you may have had a clue already, but let's read from the original Social Security Act at the box at the top. It says to provide for the general welfare. Now, wait a minute. Provide for? That sounds like socialism. I thought this was a representative republic. I didn't think this was a socialist country. It says to provide for. Doesn't the preamble of the Constitution say to promote the general welfare? Not to provide for the general welfare? Okay. To provide for the general welfare. Well, let's see, why do they need to provide for the general welfare? By establishing a system of federal old age benefits, by enabling the several states to make more adequate provisions for aged persons, blind persons, dependent and crippled children, maternal and child welfare, public health. Here again we have a list. In English grammar, everything in a list has to have something in common. In this list, what do they have in common?
Federal persons.
They're persons, they are in a federal system, and they cannot take care of themselves. Okay? If you cannot take care of yourselves and you want someone to provide for you, then this is what you want to do. Okay? Because the first thing that they do when they commit someone to a mental institution is they take their power of attorney from them. And that's so that they can provide for them, take care of them, make decisions for them. Well, see, if they're going to provide for you, then the first thing that they have to do is take your power of attorney from you so that they can make decisions for you, decide what you need and what you get and so on. Okay, let's finish reading this here. In the administration of their unemployment compensation laws, to establish a Social Security Board and to raise revenue and for other purposes. You like that catch-all phrase, and for other purposes? Well, didn't everyone think that there was a trust set up for them and that they were paying into this trust and it was like a retirement fund, and when they retired they were going to get all this money back? Well, it doesn't work that way. You gift it to the federal government. Then of course it goes into the slush fund with all the other taxes, and it goes to the IRS, and the IRS, of course, gives it to the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, and of course then it all goes overseas to the foreign bankers that own the Federal Reserve. And so none of it runs the government. Well, people say, well, gee, if you don't pay taxes, how are you going to run the government? Well, the same way the government ran before. Of course, like Bo says, they ran on excise taxes, imports, exports, and excises. That's the way the government runs. But this corporation keeps borrowing money from the Federal Reserve, and of course then they trick everyone into becoming this subject status so that they can have this safety net. Everyone's heard about the safety net that they're offering? Everyone talks about this safety net. Well, this safety net, I think most people think it's a hammock, and they're just laying in this hammock and waiting for the federal government to take care of them. Of course, state citizens have to take care of themselves. Okay. Yeah, what a unique concept. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about powers of attorney. This is from Corpus Juris Secundum, which is legal encyclopedia. If I were to put Corpus Juris Secundum on the stage and I lined it up on the edge of the stage, it would go all the way around the whole stage and maybe even a pile on the table here. Corpus Juris Secundum is a gigantic encyclopedia of law. Of course, previous to that, there was a Corpus Juris, okay? But this is from Corpus Juris Secundum. Corpus means body, juris means law, secundum means the second time, and there's a lot of Latin in law. Anyway, so let's talk about powers of attorney. Right here, this is a collage of things from Corpus Juris Secundum. Instead of having a whole bunch of Xerox pages, we just put them all on one page so we don't have to flip to all these different ones. But it says, thus an attorney occupies a dual position which imposes dual obligations. His first duty, and get this, his first duty is to the courts and to the public, not to the client. And whenever the duties of his client conflict with those he owes as an officer of the court in the administration of justice, the former must yield to the latter. The office of attorney is indispensable in administration of justice. Okay, now, and so basically what's that saying is that you get a Social Security number, you give them power of attorney over you, and you're saying that you're incompetent, you're non-compos mentis, that means you can't take care of yourself, and you need them to take care of you, so they have power of attorney over you. Of course, when your parents get old and they can't balance their checkbook anymore, and they write checks to everyone that comes to the door, then you take their power of attorney from them, and you take their checkbook and you start taking care of them. That's the way it's supposed to work. But giving power of attorney to the federal government, of course, they take the checkbook too, and they, write checks for you. Okay, all right, now let's talk about clients. If you have an attorney then you are his client. And if he's an officer of the court, then clients are also called wards of the court. So if you hire an attorney, that makes you a ward of the court. And so then the court, of course, is going to do whatever they think is in the best interest of the public, not in your best interest. See, you're the only one that cares about you. See, no one else cares about you but you. The only ones that attorneys, you know, their first obligation is to the court. They have to practice before these judges, you know, every day. And so, of course, you know, they're you know, bound before these judges, and they're going to try and make you happy, so you give them some money. But of course, the end result will be the same. Let's find out what wards of the court are. Okay, this piece down here at the bottom is from Black's Law Dictionary, and 5th edition, and it says, wards of the court, infants or in persons of unsound mind. So, what does that mean? You have to be crazy to hire an attorney, right? All right. Okay. Now, just in case anyone, you know, wasn't sure if a state citizen could have Social Security or not, let's read this here. This is from 26 Code of Federal Regulations, and it says, Social Security coverage extends to individuals employed by a foreign subsidiary of a domestic corporation. Well, what's a domestic corporation? Well, this is a Code of Federal Regulations, so this must be talking from a federal point of view. And so a foreign subsidiary of a domestic corporation would be a federal corporation. A foreign subsidiary of a domestic corporation would be a state corporation, okay? Employed by a foreign subsidiary of a domestic corporation pursuant to an agreement under Section 3121L of the Federal Insurance Contribution Act is limited to United States citizens, okay? So that's what Social Security is for. Of course, they'll take anyone else that wants to, you know, volunteer money into that system, too. They don't care what your citizenship is. But, of course, if a state citizen does that, then what happens? They take power of attorney over you, and they lump you in with these guys.
But you have to be 18 years old in order to sign away.
21 under common law. And
how do you select which court? You make mention of which court. The court being this, how are you in the court?
See, a lot of courts will have general jurisdictions, and what determines the jurisdiction is who you are. And if you're a state citizen, then if the court is a court of competent jurisdiction, then they will have common law jurisdiction, and then you can appear in a court of competent jurisdiction as a state citizen. But they use a different set of laws when they're talking to you. Okay. All right. Also, a lot of people are getting Social Security numbers for their babies now at the hospital. Of course, I got 5 kids. None of my kids have Social Security numbers. My wife doesn't have a Social Security number. I've never had a Social Security number. And you don't have to have a Social Security number. There is no law that requires you to have a Social Security number. But if you want these carrots that the federal government keeps dangling out there for you, then you got to have a number. So, and he mentioned that you cannot enter into a contract as a minor that's a valid contract. So if there's a minor that has a Social Security number, for heaven's sakes, don't use the thing. And if you use it after you turn 21, then it's implied consent, and they use that legal principle to make that contract binding after you're 21 under common law, 18 under statutory law. Okay. Okay, good. See, it's that's under statutory law, but the thing is you should never use the number, even if you're 13 or 16. You should just not use that number ever for anything. Get rid of the thing, and of course, we'll talk more about that. Okay, now we're going to talk about California, or you guys can just insert Nevada in here, okay? Now, there is the land of Nevada, okay? There's 3 different Nevadas. There's the land of Nevada. Nevada well, this definition is the geography of the geology, okay? It's the location of the dirt. Okay, where is the dirt at? That's one definition, okay? Another definition is, of course, California Republic here. California Republic was organized in 1846, okay? And it was a sovereign, independent country. It wasn't part of the Union of States until 1850. In 1849, the California Republic wrote a constitution. And that constitution was submitted to the federal government. And let's read what it says here. It says, whereas the people of California have presented a constitution and asked admission into the Union, which constitution was submitted to Congress by the President of the United States by message dated February 19th, 1850, which on due examination is found to be Republican in its form of government. Well, why is that important? Because Article 5, the Constitution, says that the United States will guarantee to every state a Republican form of government. And so they had to check out California's Constitution, make sure that before they would admit them into the Union, that it was a Republican form of government. Now, that is the Constitution of 1849. Now, what if California, some years later, wrote another constitution? Well, then California would have had to be readmitted in the Union again. Was it ever readmitted in the Union again? No. But did they write another constitution? Yes. So, and we'll find that every state has two constitutions. They have the original constitution that they're admitted in the Union with, and they have a corporate constitution. Okay? And in California, I asked March Fong Yu, and by letter, didn't call her up on the telephone. March Fong Yu is the Secretary of State in California. And she says that there is no enabling legislation for the Constitution of 1879, which is the corporate constitution. And, of course, the reason why there's no enabling legislation is because that constitution has nothing to do with the California Republic. Okay? It has to do with the state of California. Okay? And it was incorporated in 1879. And so we have three different Californias, and I'm not sure what the dates are in Nevada, but I'm sure there's three different Nevadas. Okay? Of course, we know that you have the dirt, we know that you were admitted in the Union, and we know that Nevada is also a corporation. And those three things are different definitions. Okay, let's finish reading this here. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives that the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the state of California shall be one, and hereby is declared to be one, of the United States of America, and admitted into the Union on equal footing with the original states in all respects whatever. Now, the original states had allodial property rights. A lot of people think that the Revolutionary War was fought over 5% T-tax, but it wasn't. They dumped the T-tax in the harbor just as a symbol. But what they fought the Revolutionary War over was allodial property rights. They wanted to get away from this feudal system of land ownership, and they wanted to be able to absolutely own the land without having to keep paying for the privilege of leasing the surface rights. Okay? And so, anyway, and so California was entered in the Union on equal footing with those original 13 states. And so, well, all states have to be a Republican form of government, and all states have to be on equal footing. If all states are not on equal footing, then there's something wrong. And so Nevada is on equal footing with all the other 50 states. I'll guarantee you that one. Okay, next page. Okay, this is from the Constitution of 1879 in California, and it says the boundaries of the state are those stated in the Constitution of 1849. This is the Constitution of 1879, and they say the boundaries are the same as the Constitution of 1849. Well, of course, they can claim whatever boundaries they want because it's a corporation. Does a corporation need permission to write a constitution? I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that have corporations. Do you need permission from the state to write a constitution? No. You can write your constitution, be whatever it wants. They don't care if you have a Republican form of government in your constitution. You just write the constitution, that's it. And of course, the The Constitution of 1879 is not a Republican form of government. It is, and the reason why California had to do this is because there's this new class of citizens that are running around in all the states called U.S. citizens. And they're going, gosh, these guys are aliens. What are we going to do with them all? See, in the old law books, they call them aliens. And then the federal government says, oh, we don't like you calling our citizens aliens. And so they changed it to residents. And so you'll find in the old law books it says aliens, and then then you'll find that one year they changed all the law books, and then they inserted the word resident instead of alien. A lot of people don't understand what the word resident means. Basically, it's a Latin word, and a lot of law words in law come from Latin language. And in Latin, it's residencia. Residencia is like a beach house, a cabin in the mountains, whatever. It is you're living someplace other than your home. You can reside anywhere in the world, but you can only have one home. Okay? If you are a U.S. citizen, your home is in the District of Columbia, because that's where your citizenship was created. If you are a California state citizen, then that's your home, and that's if you live anywhere else, you are a resident. See, if I moved to Nevada here, but I wanted to retain my California state citizenship, then I would be a resident of Nevada. But because I'm a state citizen of California, they can't treat me like the U.S. residents in Nevada. They have to treat me like a state citizen in Nevada. And so that's why they have that classification of other citizens, citizens of other states, because there's three different ways of dealing with people. Either you're a state citizen, or you're a citizen of another state, and so in that case they have to deal with you in the same way as a state citizen, or you are an alien. And so anyway, that's why they wrote this corporate constitution, so that they could regulate the residents in the state. See, let me explain something here. In Congress and the senators, they wear two different hats. They wear one hat where they are representatives of the Union of States, and then they wear another hat where they are an officer of this corporation of the U.S. government. And they can pass laws here, and they can pass laws here. Now, they switch those hats back and forth, and they don't tell you when they're switching hats. See, a lot of times they mix them up, and a lot of people don't understand what's going on. Well, the same thing happens in a state. See, in the Republic, the Nevada Republic or California Republic, they are representatives of the state citizens, and they regulate the corporations and the residents of the state for and behalf of the state citizens. Okay, but here is where they regulate the residents. Here is where they represent the citizens. Okay, so exactly. Most state representatives are clueless because they're politicians, not statesmen. And so what we need to do is we need to get good statesmen in as our representatives. Okay, next page, and this is more California stuff. Bear with me on the California stuff. It says, although the present Constitution is not the one on which the state was first formed, it is a substitute for that adopted in 1849 as amended in 1862. The present government's continuation of that established when the Constitution was ratified. Okay, so basically what they're saying here is that this corporate constitution is a substitute because what happened? Everyone is becoming a U.S. citizen. And so they had to come up with this new constitution and substitute for the other one in behalf of the residents of the state. So, and that's why it's, so basically, you have two systems of law, two jurisdictions even within the state. And there's a statutory jurisdiction and a common law jurisdiction. Okay, and once again, non-citizens, and this applies to all states, are either citizens of other states or aliens. Okay, now, a lot of people have gone into court, and they demand their constitutional rights. They demand their civil rights, whatever, they say. The Constitution does not grant any rights. The Constitution was written to create and regulate and protect the rights of the state citizens, but it created the United States, and it regulates the United States and limits their powers. And the Bill of Rights, what it does is it was written as a restriction on the federal government. It doesn't give you anything. It just tells them, keep your hands off. And so that's what the Bill of Rights is. And so a lot of people claim their constitutional rights, and unfortunately, there's a federal constitution also, which is basically similar, and so they grant you constitutional rights to U.S. citizens. See, because they try to make this class of citizenship similar to state citizenship, so they write another constitution and they grant you constitutional rights. But that isn't so with state citizens. It's merely a restriction on the federal government or the national government. Okay, now we're going to talk about aliens. Now, we already established, I think, that U.S. citizens are considered aliens with respect to a state, and this is the Supreme Court of California, and so, of course, this is from a state's perspective, because this is a state jurisdiction. And it says, an alien has no right to raise the question whether a statute is violative of the Constitution of the United States, Article 4, Section 2. Remember we read Article 4, Section 2, citizens in one state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. See, an alien or a U.S. citizen can't claim those rights because he's not a state citizen, okay? And so you go into courtroom and you know, a lot of judges will say, I don't want to hear that Constitution in this court. Well, because he's saying, you know, hey, you've got no right to bring that Constitution up in here because you're an alien. And of course, we'll see how they determine if you're an alien before at the end of the presentation here. Okay, now let's look at the definition of allodial. We're talking about effects now. We're going to talk about how do all these things affect you as a citizen. Okay, and some of these effects you'll like, and some of them you won't like. But you know, I can't help it. This is the way it is. Allodium. Land held absolutely in one's own right, not subject to any lord or superior. Land not subject to feudal duties or burdens. Well, what are feudal duties or burdens? Well, property tax. That's a big feudal duty or burden. Well, see, all land in the United States was intended to be held in allodium. Well, what happened? It's not in allodium these days because most people don't have property rights. See, state citizens are the only ones that can own land in allodium. Anyone else, a corporation, a U.S. citizen, a Japanese citizen, any aliens can come in the state and hold title, but they cannot have allodial property rights. Okay? And it says, an estate held by absolute ownership, not interest. That's fee simple. Fee simple is the highest form of interest known to the law. Okay? But see, allodial property rights is absolute ownership. It's not interest. It's an estate held by absolute ownership without recognition of any superior to whom any duty is due on account thereof. You know, I used to hear the term a lot, you know, a man is the king of his castle. Well, you don't hear that too much anymore because what happens is if someone don't like your castle, you know, they blow your door off your hinges and they come in and take your kids or whatever they're going to do. But the thing is if you're a state citizen and you have allodial property rights, then you are a sovereign on your own land. Okay? And so that's one of the effects of state citizenship.
Does it work?
Sure it does. It always has. There's a memorandum of law back there about allodial property rights you should read.
You own them.
What's that?
That piece of property is not taxed.
I have 43 acres that just recently bought in conjunction with my brothers. We're in the process right now of bringing the land patent forward into our name. And there's other people who have done it. That's the process. You get the land patent, you bring it forward in your name, and of course you have to prove to the courts that you have rights to own land as a state citizen, and then the county recorder takes it out of one system of records, which is qualified ownership, and they put it into another system of records, which is absolute ownership. And that's first of all, you got to be a state citizen before you can do that, though.
You know anybody that's gotten away with it in the past?
Only state citizens. I know U.S. citizens who have tried it and failed.
You know anybody that has?
Yes, I do. There's about 250,000 state citizens in state citizen service centers in about 20 states. You mentioned 28, it's 20 states, and we're trying to get into several other states. And of course, out of that 250,000, not very many people have allodial property rights yet because they haven't figured out how to do it, but we are on the cutting edge of that and doing that. But that's like way down the road. You got to become a state citizen first and have rights to land. There's three things you got to have allodial property rights. You got to have rights to land, you got to have title to land, and and you have to have a land patent. Land patent, title, and
You don't pay real estate tax.
what's that?
You don't pay real estate tax.
Real estate tax? Property tax, you mean? No, if you have, see, there's two systems of records at the county recorder's office. See, all land in this country, in all the countries, all the states, are recorded at the county level. Okay, even federal lands recorded at the county level. And the county has two systems of records. One set of records is for qualified ownership. If you have mortgage on the property, that's qualified ownership, and that property is taxed. Okay? And if you have a land patent brought forward into your name and you have allodial property rights, then that is in the other system of records, which is absolute ownership.
And you still don't pay, you don't pay property tax?
Well, that's a big subject. In fact, that's one of the biggest subjects there is, and we don't have time to go into it. Let's.
Do you or do you not pay property tax?
I personally do not.
Is it subject to forfeiture? Does the corporation that owns your property pay property tax?
My home is in Yorba Linda area, and that's an incorporated area, and it's held in a trust, and the trust pays the property tax on that home.
There is property tax paid on the property?
On that home, yes. But on the 43 acres, we're putting that, we're bringing forward the land patent now, so there won't be any property tax on that. Okay, now.
So why didn't you bring it on your home?
It's
got a mortgage on it.
yeah. I have a mortgage on it, and you can't do it if you have a mortgage on it. Right. Okay. This is election codes here, and a lot of people say, you should vote, you should vote, you should vote. But see, state citizens don't vote because state citizens are electors. Okay. Voting is a privilege that's granted by Congress to federal citizens, and this is from election codes, and let's read in the box here at the top on page 40. It says, the registration of a voter is permanent for all purposes during his life and unless and until the affidavit of registration is canceled by the county clerk for any of the causes specified in this article. Okay, and so there's lots of different reasons why you can cancel it, but if you're a U.S. citizen, that's the only thing you can do is vote. And technically speaking, you can't be elector unless you're a state citizen. Okay, but one of the effects of having voters registration is this here. This is still election codes, and it says, notwithstanding any other provisions of law, the provisions of this chapter apply to all bond issues. Okay, they're talking about bond issues proposed by county, city district, or political subdivision, or any agency, department, or board thereof, the security for which constitutes a lien on the property within the jurisdiction, and the proposal for which is required to be submitted to the voters for approval. So if you have a voter's registration, that constitutes a lien on your property within the jurisdiction and for the bond issues. And so what happens when those bond issues fail, then they collateralize those loans, and where do they come after? They come after your property because you're a registered voter. Well, see, if you're an elector, you're not a registered voter. You're registered as an elector. And what's that?
They don't recognize your vote.
Oh, yes, they do. In fact, in the book 2, we have a citizenship packet, and in book 2, there's a court case in there that says where in certain tracts where Congress has established their complete authority whatsoever, that U.S. citizens' votes are merely an advisory vote, and they can toss those votes out. And you got to read the court case to believe it. I read it about 20 times because it made me so angry. But I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's in Book 2 in the Citizenship packet, and I've got it out in my truck if you want me to look it up. Okay, so state citizens, don't fill out this form. This form, it says for U.S. citizens only. This is a voter registration form. And, of course, it says for residents. Says, and see, this here is a Xerox copy, obviously, but in the original, up here at the top, for U.S. citizens only is in red, and then it says, read this statement and warning prior to signing is in red, and then it says, I am a citizen of the United States, that's in red, penalty of perjury is in red, and then it says warning there, that's all in red in the original form. They want to make sure that there's no fraud involved in this, that you know what you're doing, that you are signing under penalty of perjury, that you are a U.S. citizen. This is a declaration of citizenship, okay? And with this, they can assume jurisdiction over you and your property. And, of course, as a state citizen, you wouldn't fill out that form. Okay. Another effect on state citizenships is right to trial by jury. How many people in here have the right to trial by jury? Okay, well, if you're a U.S. citizen, you got granted the right to trial by jury in 1968. As a state citizen, you've always had the right to trial by jury. And let's read this here. The arrow right here at the top, it says, the right of trial by jury guaranteed by the Constitution is a right which existed under the common law at the time the Constitution was adopted. And that's People versus King. And then down here at the bottom it says, Constitution guarantees to litigants right to trial by jury as it existed at common law. That's 1850. Okay, now, up here, we're going to talk about federal citizens now. It says, as far as federal due process is concerned, the right to trial by jury in state trials only dates from May 20th, 1968, the date of the decision of Duncans versus Louisiana. Okay, so this came out of the civil rights movement in the 60s. Everyone, seen the hippies with the long hair, protesting, whatever. This is one of the things that came out of the civil rights movement. They said, all right, we'll give you the right to trial by jury. How nice. So that's for federal citizens. Okay, well, did federal citizens have trials by jury before 1968? Well, sure, some of them did, but they didn't have the right to trial by jury previous to 1968. Okay. Okay, now, the ladies in the room, please don't get up and walk out in the middle of this, okay? That happened one time. There was this couple, and they got up and walked out, and I said, well, you didn't hear the punchline. Anyway, so wait till we get to the end here. It says, a state is a party to every marriage contract of its own residents as well as the guardian of their morals. Roberts versus Roberts. And so, who's the governor here in Nevada? Who? Bob Miller? Okay, well, who here has a marriage license? Raise your hand if you have a marriage license. Okay, well, isn't it nice to know that he's guarding your morals? If you ever wonder who that guy peeking in the window at night is, now you know. Okay. All right. Okay, now, what is this marriage contract? Well, the marriage contract is about 2.5 inches thick. Now, if I were to walk up to any one of you in this room and hand you a contract that's 2.5 inches thick, said, don't read the fine print, just sign it. You'd be a fool to sign it, wouldn't you? But how many of us have done that? No one reads the marriage contract when they get married. They're in love. They want to get married. Who cares, They sign away. But they don't read the marriage contract. 2.5 inches thick. Well, what does it say in there? Well, among other things, it says in there that anything that issues forth from this marriage becomes property of the state. What issues forth from a marriage? Well, children, properties, business, whatever. And see, social services, your neighbor says, hey, I seen them spank their kid one time. I think their kids are being abused. They call it social services. Social services comes in, takes your kids from you, and you got 6 months trying to prove that you are innocent, and you're guilty until proven innocent. And there's only one. And so social services uses the marriage license contract as their power to come in and take your kids from you. Okay. It applies to anyone who has a marriage license.
And the marriage license, is that a document out of the federal or the state?
It is a corporate state document. Okay? This is what the marriage license is. It says, a license or permission granted by public authority to persons who intend to intermarry. Okay? It's permission. Now, marriage is a religious sacrament. Do you need permission to perform a religious sacrament? No, you don't. Okay. Okay, let's not get into that right now. Okay, so it's license or permission granted by public authority to persons who intend to intermarry. So if you are a person and you are going into an interracial marriage, see, under common law, and see, all countries have a common law. In Japan, they have common law and against interracial marriage, and it's called corruption of blood. Now, it's not to say, you know, one race is better than the other. It doesn't make any difference. But when you mix races together under the common law, it's called corruption of blood. In Japan, they won't let them marry anyone except for Japanese. See, like the servicemen are over there in Japan, they want to marry some Japanese gal. They have to go to the U.S. Embassy to get married because they won't let them get married to anyone unless they're Japanese. So under the common law here in the United States, it was called corruption of blood. And so the first one to ever be issued a marriage license was before the Civil War. A man wanted to marry his mulatto slave. And of course, that was illegal under common law, and so he had to get a marriage license. And so that was the first marriage license that was ever issued. And so then it says it's a license or permission granted to the public authority. And so, but basically, you know, state citizens were of all different races and colors and whatever, but see, they weren't considered to be intermarrying because they were all state citizens, you see? Like you go to Jamaica, and these people are all different colors, okay, but they're all Jamaicans, and so that's not considered interracial marriage. Okay, and so basically, if a state citizen's marrying a state citizen, no matter what color they are, it's not interracial marriage. Okay, now just intermarriage. This is what the term intermarriage means. It says intermarriage in the popular sense. This term denotes the contracting of a marriage contract between two persons considered members of different nations, tribes, families, etc. Okay, or different sovereigns. Okay, now, so if you're a state citizen, how do you get married? Well, you get married with a marriage certificate. Okay, this is what a marriage certificate is. Marriage certificate is an instrument which certifies a marriage. It is executed by the person officiating at the marriage. It is not intended to be signed by the parties. It's not a contractual marriage. It is a marriage certificate. See, everyone in this room, I'm sure, was told that a common law marriage is, and that just means you're shacking up, right? It's, you know, that's a dirty thing. You know, you don't want a common law marriage. No, not a common law marriage. You want the statutory marriage, okay? I see. With a marriage certificate, that is a common law marriage, okay? And it doesn't mean that you're shacking up. All right. Okay, now let's go on and so when I got married, I was dumb like everyone else. I got a marriage license, and so then, of course, I had to revoke the marriage license. But, of course, I'm still married. I got 5 kids, a wife. I love them all dearly. I'm still married because I still got that marriage certificate. Okay, I had a marriage license and marriage certificate. So I'm still married, even though I did get rid of my marriage license. So what I did is I just cut the state out of my marriage. So it's, everyone here know what a menage a trois is? Okay, we won't talk about that. You know, if you want to state in your, whatever. Well, no. Okay, we're going to talk about operators now. And this is from the Motor Vehicle Transportation License Tax. It says operator. Operator includes any person engaging in the transportation of persons or property for a hire or compensation by or upon motor vehicles upon any public highway in this state, either directly or indirectly. So an operator, if you say you're an operator, that means someone must be paying you for taking your car from place to place, right? This is what an operator is not. An operator does not include any of the following. And include is another one of those legal words that means this thing only, okay? And if it's not specified there, then it's not included, okay? It only includes what's specified, okay? And so it doesn't matter what else, anything else that you think it means doesn't make any difference. It only means what they include. Okay, operator does not include any of the following. Any person transporting his own property in a motor vehicle owned or operated by him unless he makes a specific charge for the transportation. Well, it seems kind of silly to charge yourself for transporting your own stuff. But, you know, if you're going to do that, you know, you want to mark the miles off or something, then, you know, then of course, you know, you are considered an operator. Okay, now, a lot of people in here have driver's licenses. I would say probably most everyone in this room has a driver's license. Well, what is a driver's license? Okay, everyone thinks that they drive. Well, what is a driver? A driver's license includes, and remember it means this thing only, a driver's license includes both an operator's and a chauffeur's license. Does everyone know what a chauffeur is? I think everyone knows what a chauffeur is. We just read what the definition of operator is, okay? So operator is for hire or compensation. Does anyone doubt that a chauffeur is for hire or compensation? Okay, no one doubts that, okay. All right, so a driver's license is you're either an operator or a chauffeur. That's what a driver's license is, okay? So, makes me wonder why so many people have driver's licenses. Okay, now, how many people in this room have a motor vehicle? Okay, let's read what a motor vehicle is. And this is out of Title 18 again. That's where your civil rights are found. That's where the criminal code. And of course, this is what they define motor vehicle as. And of course, this would apply to all federal citizens. It says motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled, drawn by mechanical power. Well, that sounds like everything, doesn't it? I mean, this is Title 18.
This is USC?
Yeah, this is Title 18, USC, I believe. And it says, but it sounds like everything until you get to the qualifier here, and it says, and used for commercial purposes on the highway in the transportation of passengers and property. Okay? So, if you have a taxi or if you have a big truck and you haul people's stuff around, then that's a motor vehicle because it's for commercial purposes. See, because the state citizens have the inalienable right to travel. U.S. citizens have the privilege of driving. See, everyone knows that driving is a privilege, right? Everyone knows that. We've had that pounded into our head our whole lives. Driving is a privilege. Well, of course driving is a privilege because it's a commercial activity. You don't get to use the highways that belong to the people or the state citizens and make money on them if you're not going to compensate the citizens for using their highways. You see, the state citizens get to use them freely, but the state citizens, through the representatives, tax the corporations and the people who use the highways for commercial purposes so that they can keep the highways nice. Okay. Now this is the original, this is the Motor Vehicle Act, and it says that the Motor Vehicle Act is not unconstitutional. Remember we read earlier that the income tax is not unconstitutional? Well, the Motor Vehicle Act is not unconstitutional either. This is page 50.
Because it's U.S.
Right, it says classification of drivers of motor vehicles, whether reasonable. Motor Vehicle Act is not unconstitutional, as making an arbitrary and unwarranted classification in that it requires professional chauffeurs or drivers of motor vehicles for hire to pay an annual license tax, but exempts all other operators of such vehicles from such tax and regulation. Don't you feel like you're taxed and regulated to death with your car? You got to pay this registration every year, and it keeps going up, and pretty soon the registration costs more than the car does. But if you aren't a chauffeur or an operator for commercial purposes, then you are not subject. You are exempt from such tax and regulation. Okay, now, so why do you have to have a driver's license then? This is a U.S. Supreme Court case. And this here explains why. This is just the first page of it, but it's Hendricks versus Maryland. Just short form, Hendricks was a resident of the District of Columbia. He was a citizen of the District of Columbia, like all U.S. citizens are, and the District of Columbia didn't require plates or licenses at the time, and so he went on into Maryland. Maryland didn't require plates or licenses at the time, unless, of course, you were in a commercial activity, and so he goes in there, and he gets a ticket for no plates, no driver's license. And he says, hey, what's the deal here? You know, says you don't require your citizens to have plates or driver's license. And so then basically it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that whenever any citizens of the District of Columbia, any U.S. citizens are traveling in any of the 50 states, they're considered to be in interstate commerce, and everything they do is for commercial purposes. So if you are a U.S. citizen, you are a piece of commerce. Everything you do is for commercial purposes, and that's why you have to have a driver's license, because it's a commercial activity. Okay. Okay. A lot of people say, well, gee, you know, if you don't have a driver's license, if you don't have plates in your car, you can get pulled over every 10 minutes. Well, that's not true. See, I haven't had any plates on my car for 2 years. I've gotten one ticket. Okay, Richard McDonald, he's the founder of State Citizen Service Center, and he hasn't had any plates on his. He's a retired policeman. He hasn't had any plates on his car for 8 years, going on 9 years now, and he's gotten 7 tickets in 9 years. And so, anyway, and so when you get pulled over, this is what happens. It says, I pulled you over because your vehicle has no license plates. And you say, yes, officer, I do not have plates on my car. I removed them and sent them back to the DMV because they belong to a resident involved in a commercial activity. I asked them to send me proper plates for a citizen. They have not done so yet. I have the paperwork in the car if you'd like to see it. And of course, you have all the paperwork, you know, right there in your glove box, all ready to show them. It says, may I see your driver's license? I do not have a driver's license as I do not drive commercially. I canceled it with the DMV and asked them to send me proper ID for a citizen to travel. They have not sent me anything yet. I have the paperwork in the car if you'd like to see it. Do you have any ID? And so then I pull out my ID. And here the State Citizen Service Centers make this up, and the courts recognize this as valid ID because it has a number on there. This number that's on there is not my number. This number, see, I didn't trade my birth name for a number, okay? This number that's on here is a locating number at the county recorder's office, which identifies the documents that identify who I am. So if anyone has any question of who I am, all they have to do is go to the county recorder's office, look up those records. It's public record. It says right on there who I am. I'm a state citizen of California. I have an oath of allegiance to the Constitution of California, and it's a revocation of power of attorney of all licenses and so on. And then, of course, on the back here, it says, this certifies that the bearer is a white citizen. Well, anyone can be a white citizen. That's the class of citizenship that they should have given the slaves when they were freed. See, because the blacks have a legitimate gripe. See, they were given civil rights. It's a bait and switch thing. See, they banned involuntary servitude, and they thought they were going to get, you know, inalienable rights. Am I saying that wrong again? Rights, just like state citizens, but they didn't give them those kind of rights. They gave them civil rights, and so of course, there's lots of blacks that are excited about becoming white citizens now in L.A. area where we work. I'm serious. It says this is the card that we make up here. It says, this certifies that the bear is a white citizen of California, identified in the Constitution of the State of California, 1849, a member of the posterity defined in the preamble of the Constitution of the United States of America, 1787, and as such common law citizen of a state is guaranteed full sovereign rights, Dred Scott versus Sanford. The bear is not now and never has been a statutory citizen of the United States, nor a resident within this state under the so-called 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Any claim to the contrary is based on fraud and is null and void, nunc pro tunc. A friend of mine, a big black guy, it's not at all. There's this big black guy. He lives in Watts, and he's a state citizen. He has one of these, and of course he's got no plates on his car, and so he's traveling down the road in his Eldorado, and the cop pulls him over, and of course he says, you know, can I see your driver's license? And so he pulls this thing out, says, I don't have a driver's license. I send it back to DMV, and you know, would you like to see the paperwork? And of course he says, do you have any ID? And he pulls this out and he hands it to him, and he looks at it. Of course, his picture's on it there, and he flips it over just to you know see what it says on the back there, and he says here, you're a white citizen. And this black guy says, well, aren't I? and the cop didn't know what to say, so he just hands it back to him and says, have a good evening. You know, I'd like to see that one go to the Supreme Court. Okay, are we running out of time? A couple minutes? What's that? Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
The violations in the Constitution
Uh-huh.
generated the form in which we govern.
Right.
Give me one simple definition of this. What is the resolution?
The resolution is to reclaim your birthright.
No, it's not that. It's a better resolution. You know, a defined positive resolution that gets them across the board.
Yeah, reclaim your birthright as a state citizen.
No, there's something better than that. I'm going back to the Constitution. You know what it is? We have a democracy in this state under the 19th article. I filed a petition in 1985 says the people of the state of Nevada do enact as follows. It's not the military definition on the 30th of November 1928. There's a country 700 years in the making. The people define the law. I'm not talking of impulsive government and getting out here running rampart. I'm talking about a defined form of government that's not impulsive like they iterate.
Exactly.
Give this government and give these people the power to govern and to get rid of these degenerate laws we have in this land, and no one can save them.
That's exactly right.
The power vested in this Constitution.
See, but
I can improve on this government.
that's right.
Waiting on Jesus and the politician to save you. Get up off your complacency and save yourself.
Exactly. Because that's exactly right. We cannot save this country.
I'm the only presidential candidate in the United States that cannot preserve your freedom if you want. You save the nation, and if you get it on, I'll save freedom. Well, I have the only way. I'm the only right.
And so,
And it's a common expression in my profession. I don't laugh. When everything fails, fall out the book. Use the Constitution in Article 5 and your power to visit. Redesign this republic.
I came here to listen to this man. We'll talk to you after the meeting. Is that all right?
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you.
thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. That was wonderful. You know, he's exactly right because you cannot save this country all at once. You have to start right here. You have to get your own life in order first, reclaim your birthright, and then once you have your power of attorney back, then you can do something about it. Until you have your power of attorney back, you cannot do anything. And
Right. Stop it. That was a democracy. It's a republic.
well, unfortunately, it's
Sounds like Joe Biden.
unfortunately, things are acting as if they are democracy.
How do we elect if we don't sign up for voter registration? How would we?
You register as an elector, and there is different forms that have been put in mothballs because there are no state citizens to speak of anymore. Of course, everyone that's born in a state is still a state citizen. Okay, now let's talk about how does the court determine jurisdiction over you. Okay, the standard screening questions is page 53. And these questions were asked at the Department of Transportation in 1989, August 24th. And the courts do not have to ask these questions in this form. They can take silent judicial notice of the answers to these questions, okay? And they can assume the answers to these questions. They don't have to ask you these questions. These questions here were asked because he was challenging jurisdiction. And so they wanted to determine if they had jurisdiction. And so they said, before we go any further, I need to ask you our standard screening questions. Mr. Gutierrez, are you a citizen of the United States? Mr. Cooper answers, no, I am not. Are you a resident of Arizona? No, I am not. I was born in Phoenix. I've lived in Maricopa County all my life, but I am not a resident. I do not reside. Are you registered to vote? No, I am not. Do you have a driver's license? No, I do not. Do you have any motor vehicles registered in Arizona? No, I do not. Are you employed? No, I am not. I am not employed. I am not self-employed. I am not gainfully employed. In fact, I am not employable, but I work. Besides, Arizona is a right-to-work state. See, Arizona is a right-to-work state even for U.S. citizens. See, they don't care if you're an alien or not. They say you have the right to work. But most states, see, all states are right-to-work states for state citizens because that is an inalienable right. Okay, do you pay state and federal resident income tax? You notice the qualifier there, resident income tax? Well, see, if you're a citizen, you're not a resident. You have domicile in the state, not residency status. And, of course, in Nevada, you don't have state income tax, but in California, we have state income tax. And people say, well, gee, you're a state citizen. Shouldn't you pay state income tax? Well, I would like to, but I can't, you see, because I'm not a resident, for one. And for another thing is the Franchise Tax Board is the one that collects it, and they only collect taxes from franchises. And so if you are a U.S. citizen, you're considered a franchise of a foreign corporation, and so therefore you are only a resident in the state, not a citizen, and so therefore you have to pay the Franchise Tax Board. Okay, Mr. Gutierrez nodded his head in agreement and went on. Do you pay, okay, I already read that one. Do you pay state and federal income tax? Okay, do you pay property tax in Arizona? No, I do not. Well, if you're a state citizen and you're paying property tax, then there's a problem. It's because you're ignorant and you don't know that you have property rights. And if you don't know what to do about it, then what you do is you put your property in trust and let the trust pay the property tax until you can figure out how to get your allodial property rights back. Do you have a marriage license? We already talked about that. No, I do not. Do you have children enrolled in public school? No, I do not. My children are home taught. Because see, you know, a lot of you here know about America 2000. That's the federal curriculum that's going to come in and educate us to be good world citizens. If you want to pay for the privilege of having your kids educated, being a good one world citizen, then you can pay for that privilege as a state citizen and send your kids to a public school by paying the non-resident fee. Because if you're not paying property tax, then you don't get to send your kids to public school, you see? So then what you do is you either pay property tax through trust so that your kids can go to public school, or you you pay the non-resident fee and send them to public school. But if you're going to pay the non-resident fee, why don't you just send them to a private school? Of course, with all the extra money that you'd have, that you'd save from the federal and state resident income tax, you could probably do that, and your kids could get a good education. Okay, this is the end of the documentation that I wanted to present tonight. There was one more thing that I just recently looked up in the law library that I wanted to mention before we do question and answers. As a state citizen, there's a court case called Union Pacific Railroad versus Bersheiber. And in that court case, Bersheiber was a New York state citizen, okay? And he was receiving money through a federal corporation, that the railroad was a federal corporation. And so, because he was receiving money from a federal corporation, he owed income tax on that. But see, he was a state citizen, and he knew he didn't have to pay income tax because he was a state citizen. And so then this is a court case that the IRS quotes all the time. But anyway, the United States Supreme Court classified him, a New York state citizen, as a non-resident alien. Of course, they're speaking from a federal perspective, a non-resident alien. So they said that Bersheiber was a non-resident alien. He was a New York state citizen. Okay, of course, that's from the federal perspective. So from a state perspective, the U.S. citizens are aliens, okay? So anyway, state citizens, under Code of Federal Regulations, 26 Code of Federal Regulations, are exempt from identifying numbers. See, and so I wanted to find that, so I went and looked up the court case, and I Xeroxed it off, and I got it in my briefcase. See, I guess my briefcase in the back there. Stuart? Anyway, I don't need to quote it for you, but anyway, basically, it says that as state citizens are exempt from identifying numbers unless, and then they refer you over to another title of law, and then you look that up there. Okay.
You might want to also mention Richard McDonald trying to get this court.
What's that?
Yeah, Richard McDonald.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Stuart. Okay, and so then they say unless, and then they refer you over to another book, and so then you got to go pull that other book out, and you look that up, and then it says unless you make an election, okay? The election is to get a Social Security number, okay? And if you don't make that election, then you're exempt as a state citizen. But even as a state citizen, if you make that election, then you're no longer exempt, and they classify you as a U.S. citizen. Okay, I just wanted to specify that because as a state citizen, the law says that you are exempt from identifying numbers. And it doesn't matter why, for religious reasons or whatever, if you don't want to be identified, a Social Security number. See, what's her name? Hillary? Yeah, Hillary. She's got this new plan for national health care. It's going to deduct it out of your payroll before you even get paid. They're going to pay for your health care. Won't that be nice? And there's going to be this little card. And this little card's going to have a little computer chip in the corner. It has your picture on it, has a barcode underneath your picture, and has your Social Security number next to the barcode. And of course, that is going to be how you access your health care. And of course, you can do that as a federal citizen. But as a state citizen, you are exempt from that because of 26 Code of Federal Regulations. Okay, let's open it up for questions. Go ahead right here.
I find it perplexing. What happens if they make the District of Columbia the 51st state, which we're talking about doing? What happens to the United States situation of the District of Columbia, Donald Trump?
Okay, the District of Columbia, okay, he said, what happens if the District of Columbia becomes the 51st state? Well, see, the District of Columbia is already a federal state, just like Puerto Rico is, okay? And so all they have to do is announce the District of Columbia is now going to be a federal state. And big deal. It always has been a federal state according to the corporation, the United States government. And of course, it can never be a union, one of the union of the states, but it can be a federal state, just like Puerto Rico is. Yeah.
On the 7 times that Richard McDonald was stopped, he received 1 ticket.
Right.
Please discuss that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Richard McDonald, he's the founder of State Citizenship Service Centers, and he's the retired cop that I told you about who got 7 tickets in 8 or 9 years. And, well, no, he got stopped 7 times in 8 or 9 years, and he got 1 ticket, okay? Okay, correct myself, I said that wrong. He got 1 ticket in 8 or 9 years, and he was stopped about 7 times. Anyway, and so he's been trying to take this ticket up to the Supreme Court. And, of course, they keep trying to dismiss the ticket. You know, they're going, no, don't do this. We don't want to set a precedence here. Let's get rid of this thing. And, of course, he's working real hard to get himself convicted so that you know, I mean, but he has to tell them who he is and then get convicted so he can go up on appeal. And so he's been trying to get himself convicted for years on this thing, but he can't get himself convicted. They keep trying to throw the thing out. The service center that I work with in Orange County, we're doing about 2 cases a week in a traffic court, and we never argue the cases. What we do is we just file motions saying who we are, and we subpoena Duces Tecum, the district attorney, to bring in documents proving that we're U.S. citizens or residents of the state and that we're in commercial activity. Subpoena means you show up in court. Duces Tecum means you bring with you the things that are itemized. And so the district attorney is supposed to come into the courtroom with the evidence that proves that you're a U.S. citizen, and the evidence that proves that you're a resident of the state, and the evidence that proves that you're in commercial activity. Well, then, of course, the district attorney gets all flustered and says, I don't have none of this stuff. What does he want me to do, you know? And so then the DA will either come into the courtroom, like in my case, he came in the courtroom, and he says, Your Honor, I don't have any of these things that Mr. Olsen is asking for. And so I just moved to dismiss, and so we dismissed for lack of prosecution. Yes?
Two questions for the rest of the show, if you don't mind. The first one was your basis for domicile, a little story on that. The other one, if you handle a deduction at all, you have your car not registered for license, how do you get your insurance on it? You said you're large than that.
Good question. See, you guys here in Nevada are familiar with gambling, I'm sure. But gambling, insurance comes under the gambling laws. Okay, you go to the law library and you find insurance under the gambling laws. See, you are betting that you're going to crash your car and hurt people, and they're betting that you're not, depending on what they think of you is depend on what the odds are, you see? And so they're playing the odds. And so the thing is when you buy a car, there is a certificate of origin. Okay, that certificate of origin you never see. The courts have ruled that a pink slip is not evidence of ownership. A certificate of origin is evidence of ownership. But what happens when you buy a car, they send that certificate of origin directly to the DMV, and then the DMV burns the thing, and then they send you a pink slip. Well, pink slip is not evidence of ownership. It only shows that you're holding title and the state has interest in it. And then they give you registration, and you stick these little stickers on your car that says in the background, for official use only, okay? Because the state, that's a state vehicle that you have interest in and you're holding the title on. And that's what the pink slip is. And so then, of course, you send that back. And another thing that is evidence of ownership is a bill of sale. And so if it's registered, then that's a state-owned vehicle, and that's why it has to be registered. Now, the state can require you to have insurance on their property, okay? This is the state-owned vehicle, and so they say, well, you got to have insurance on this property because, this is our stuff, and you got to take good care of it. And so that's where they require insurance for that. Now, as a state citizen, you don't have a registration, you don't have plates, you don't have a driver's license. How are you going to get insurance on your car? Well, what most state citizens do is they have a general liability policy through their homeowner's thing or their renter's policy or whatever, and basically covers them for any liabilities for whatever they do. Right back here.
Let's assume you know
for a new citizenship journey?
What I would do is, if I was going to make Nevada my home, I would just file a declaration of citizenship at the county recorder's office. It's real simple. No, you just file at the county recorder's office, and that's a public document. Yeah. What you have to do is see, when the state citizens cease to exist, then the sovereign state ceases to exist. But as long as they're state citizens, there is a sovereign state. Okay? Right here. You cannot without a federal ID number. You have to have a federal ID number, a Social Security number of some kind, to register for the draft. See, that gets us into another area. I don't know if I have time to discuss number, a Social Security number of some kind, to register for the draft. See, that gets us into another area. I don't know if I have time to discuss that. But see, the Union of States lost their military in 1947 with the UN Charter. Okay, the UN Charter was written by Alger Hiss and Dexter White, and basically, because of the writing of the UN Charter, what they had to do is they had to take the military out of the Union of States and put it in the District of Columbia under the USG, the United States government, that foreign corporation. And so what they did is they discharged everyone from the armed forces, from the Army of the United States of America, as it was called in World War II, was, if it was just a name change, all they would have said is that from now on, the Army of the United States of America will be called the U.S. Army. But they didn't do that. It was a jurisdictional change, so they had to discharge everyone from the armed forces, and then the same day re-enlist them in this new armed forces, which is a different jurisdiction, and it's the U.S. Army, U.S. Navy, etc. Right here.
Does the state citizenship program limit the contract that we signed with Social Security and
Right.
the Federal Reserve things that we're saying?
Right. That's the first thing you do, is you have to rescind rescind and revoke all those things.
What are the adhesion contracts?
Right. The thing is let me explain to you what rescind and revoke is. Revoke is, he's asking, do you rescind all the licenses and contracts with these adhesion contracts, whatever. Revoke is like a divorce, okay? The marriage was valid back then, but it's stopped now. That's revoke. Rescind means that it's null and void. It's like an annulment, okay? It goes all the way back to the beginning as if it never was. Now, the only way that you can legitimately rescind a contract is if there is fraud involved. And there is fraud involved, because the definition of fraud is that, one of the definitions of fraud is that something that was not disclosed that ought to have been disclosed. Well, when you got a Social Security number, if you were changing your citizenship status, that should have been disclosed. Well, see, it was kind of in a covert way, but not overtly. And so that is fraud. And so because of that fraud, you're able to rescind that contract as if it never was. And as you notice, when I read on that card, in the back of the card there, it says, never has been a statutory U.S. citizen. Okay.
Even if you had it, though.
Right, even if you had one at one time, you can say that you never have been a U.S. citizen because you rescinded it. Okay?
Okay, I'm a reservist. If I became a state citizen, then I would have to drop out of the reserves, or is there...
No. He's saying he's a reservist. If he became a state citizen, would he have to drop out of the reserve? No, but you'd probably have to change your number.
I had an old number, and they changed it to the Social Security.
Right. What you probably should do is revert back to the old number. Yeah.
What do you do about getting a job? Most employers will hire you with your
Okay, the question is, most employers will not hire you without a Social Security number. Well, that's true. You cannot be employed without a Social Security number. But you can work for a corporation under a W-8 form. Okay, W-8 form is an IRS form. You can work for a foreign jurisdiction corporation under a W-8 form as a state citizen without a Social Security number. Yes?
What about the money you paid into Social Security?
You can get the money back. There are people who have gotten Social Security back. It's not easy, but you can get it back, and there is precedent set already for getting that money back. Now, you only will get back the portion that you put in. You won't get back the amount that was matched.
None.
Yeah. From Puerto Rico, it's no problem. You just make a declaration of citizenship just the same way anyone else would. The only difference is you say that you were a U.S. citizen and now you become a state citizen. Yeah.
If you want a declaration of citizenship, you don't have to have real estate ownership. Then you decide to go in and out of the country.
We'll go on with the questions. I want to make a little announcement because I have to leave. I'm Dr. Leela Marie, and you're all welcome here because of the Breakfast Club. You are our first guest at night.
Thank you.
I heard him on the Lou Epton show, as we all did, and they were looking for a place to meet. And we don't use this at night. We just use it at 10:30 to about 1 in the morning. So I thought we would try and make it available. I think it's worked out great. I'm very happy.
Give her a big hand. Appreciate that.
Well, we want you to come back when you come back to town. This should be not the last time, just the first time.
Well, I hope I can come back. Yes, that would be wonderful.
Now, when you leave, we do have a fee that we pay for this. And if you want to drop a little donation in the little bowl that's out by the door, we appreciate it, but it's not at all expected, more or less, to say. So now go on with your questions. Stay as late as you like.
We appreciate that.
There's
Thank you.
no time element.
Okay. Right here. Thank you very much. If you are going to leave and you bought the books, go ahead and take them with you. If you want to keep the book, please give Stuart $10 on your way out if you want to keep the book. If not, just give the book back to Stuart. Okay, go ahead. Question right here. There's a flyer in the back with that information on it. You can just pick that up on your way out. Well, this is just a presentation that I do, and I have business cards in the back that have that information, and there's flyers that have that information on it too. And the reason why and the flyers are free. It's just single sheet flyer. Those are free, so anyone can take those. Yeah.
Those who are living, available, interested, want to please put your name and number, sheet of paper back.
Okay, and make a note next to the name and number that you are interested in a video, okay?
Sure, I have a piece of paper.
Okay, great. A state citizen is an American national, but just one of many American nationals. If you say you're American national, that doesn't nail down who you are, okay? You have an announcement? Okay. We have another announcement here, and then I'll answer this question.
I have available the NAFTA Special Edition from Chuck Harder. They're 50 cents each if anyone would like one. And I would like to donate it to Leela for the use of the room. So the money will be going to Leela.
Thank you. Oh, thanks very much. Okay, he had a question about 9 numbers. Well, 9 numbers, if you use a W-8 form to open a bank account as a state citizen, that form is a certificate of foreign status because the banks are federally chartered entities. And so you use a W-8 form as a state citizen, and you put all 9s on the form, and so that's how that works. And that's what the 9 numbers for is for right. You have to be a state citizen, otherwise there's fraud, and then you'll be in trouble. Yeah, right here against the wall. That's a process that we go through and we help people with at the service center. First of all, the question was, how do you rescind your Social Security number? first of all, what you do is you revoke the power of attorney that's attached to the Social Security number. You do that at the county recorder's office. Then you do that with the notary, and then you make it public by filing the county recorder's office, and you can even have them certified by the Secretary of State. I can show you my citizenship documents, just if you're interested, real quick here. This is what they look like in California. These. Okay, these are my citizenship documents here. This here is a certification from the Secretary of State. This here is the notary public, and this here is a recording at the county recorder's office. And so the notary public makes this a legal document. Filing at the county recorder's office makes it a public document, and it also gives you that document location number that you put on your card, and then the certification makes it a certified public legal document. Okay? And there's three parts to it. There's a revocation of power of attorney, there's the oath of allegiance to the Constitution, and there's the Declaration of Citizenship. That's part of the service of the State Citizen Service Centers, and we provide those for people who want to become citizens. Now, you can do this on your own. You don't have to pay the service center to become a citizen. You can do this on your own. We encourage people to do that because the service centers can't handle everyone. But if you need a lot of help, then the service centers are there to help you. Hopefully, we can get a service center set up in this area if we get enough state citizens signed up. W-8 form. I just opened a new one the other day. Use the W-8 form, and you put all 9s on there for a Social Security number. I'm sorry.
Another one?
Another announcement.
Okay. Clark County Commissioner's ripoff. Please take a number of these and pass them out to your friends. Very, very, very important. Everything that is underlined has been established and verified. So please take these. There's a great number over there. They are free.
Okay, lady here in front.
What's the difference between people that claim to be non-resident aliens and ones that
Okay, she asked the question, what about people that claim to be non-resident aliens, and how is that different than state citizens? Well, see, a state citizen, the Supreme Court has classified them as non-resident aliens with respect to the District of Columbia and all the federal jurisdictions. But if you claim that you are a non-resident alien only, then who are you? See, then what happens is they send the INS over to pick you up, and they beat you until you confess, what your citizenship is. You see, because they need to deport you. You see, and so if you are not a state citizen and you are a non-resident alien, who are you? So they pick you up and they beat you till you confess, yes, I am a U.S. citizen, and then the IRS comes back in and slam dunks you. Yeah, go ahead.
Why can't you be in state inhabitants or indigenous to the state? Why do you have to know allegiance?
Well, the thing is you have to read in terms and phrases the definition of inhabitant, because there's a legal definition of inhabitant that puts you under their jurisdiction. What's that? Well, the thing is there's people that want to be, just people without having any allegiance to anything or be citizen of any country whatsoever, but no countries in the world recognize that. This country doesn't either. And so the only thing that you can be is either a U.S. citizen, state citizen, or some kind of alien that's from another country.
You can't be sovereign if you're owing allegiance.
Well, right, but the thing is a state citizen, you are sovereign, okay? Because
Maybe I don't know the definition.
Okay, citizenship, there is a class of sovereign citizenship, okay? And that's state citizens is the class of sovereign citizens, okay? And it is recognized in law that state citizens are sovereign. We read that court case where it says they recognize 3 sovereigns. to people, the state and the federal? Well, see, if you are a resident of the state, then you are a subject to the state. If you are a citizen of the state, if you are a state citizen, then that is your creature, your creation, okay? And you cannot be subject to your creations. So state citizens are not subject to their creation. You know, that may not be a perfect answer, but that's the best one I can give you right now. Standing up right there. Uh-huh.
If I'm a citizen of California,
Uh-huh.
I own it there. I become a citizen here, and I own absolute ownership of all of the United States.
If you are...
Patent receive your absolute title. The patent process, I'm aware, is that it's federal. If you're in court there, you get your house paid off, you get a patent on the property. You have the absolute ownership.
Yeah, there are different kinds of patents. The question is about absolute ownership, land patents, allodial property rights. There are different kinds of land patents, and you need to research the land patent to see that. Now, the question before was, different states. It doesn't matter. See, if you are a state citizen, then Article 4, the Section 2, applies, and that every state has to treat you as if you're a state citizen. But if you're not a state citizen, then they treat you as if you're an alien, and you can't have a land patent and allodial property rights. Right here? No, a trust cannot have allodial title, because a trust designates trust between different entities, okay? That's what a trust is, okay? And allodial title is absolutely in one's own right. It can't even be in husband and wife's name. It only is in one name only, and in a state citizen's name. And so a trust cannot own land and allodium. Yes? Well, homesteading is a statutory thing for U.S. citizens, and basically what it was is 40 acres and a mule for the freed slaves is what homesteading is. Yes?
I'm interested in getting more detailed information about your particular program.
Uh-huh.
How can I get more?
Well, what you'll have to do is...
Some kind of a program, right?
Yeah, we do have a program, and you know, like I say, you don't have to sign up for it, but we do have it available, and there is a fee involved with it, and it's the fee, if you want to go through the whole program and have us help you with it, is $795. But basically, you have to do a lot of studying on your own, because we can't pour the knowledge into your head. You know, we can...
Do you have like an outline of the program?
Right. What we do is we have a citizenship packet, and in the packet there's 5 books. Book 1 is terms and phrases. Book 2 is case law, and Book 3 is case law. Book 4 is a treatise on citizenship, one of the finest treatises written on citizenship ever. It was written by a lawyer just after the turn of the century. It's an excellent treatise. Anyway, and then Book 5 is a citizenship manual, and it outlines step by step, step 1, step 2, step 3, of all the steps to go through to become a state citizen. Now, I can tell you those steps, and you can do them on your own if you're interested, or if you want to sign up for the program, then, you know, we're more than happy to do that too.
When you say sign up for the program, you're talking about...
This packet, you get this packet, okay? And this is what state citizen service centers, like I say, we're in 20 states. And, of course, you know, we have a ton of service centers in California, but we're trying to get service centers in different states. And, you know, if we get service centers set up in this area, then, you know, you'll be able to have a representative that can distribute those packets locally. Of course, if you sign up with my service center in California, then it's going to be difficult servicing you. But we can do that if you're interested.
Now, in other words, if you have an outline...
Yeah, that's...
...packet that doesn't cost $795.
No, that's part of the packet. I can tell you what the outline is and show it to you, but I can't give it to you because that packet belongs to Richard McDonald, who is the founder of State Citizen Service Centers, and I can't give away his stuff, okay? But I can tell you all about it and show it to you, and then you can do whatever you want. Well, we have the 5-booklet set that's part of the program. We have a lot of other booklets that are informational. There's different ways to do the program too. You can do it a step at a time, going through the different books, or you can do it all at once. But it all works out to the same amount of money.
What about
passports? Passports, okay. What's your passport say on there? Okay. Florida, USA. You're a Florida state citizen? Okay. He was born in Florida. So, see, passports is a legitimate function of the national government. Okay? And so they don't put U.S. citizen on there. In fact, you don't even have to have a Social Security number to get a passport. You can get the state citizens get passports all the time. I got a passport. It's no problem. Just tell them I don't have a Social Security number. And sometimes they say, well, gee, we're going to tell the IRS, but, big deal. The IRS can't do nothing if you don't have a Social Security number. And so Florida, USA, that's correct order and everything. He is a Florida state citizen, and Florida is part of the USA. And so, Florida, USA, that is...
What about the application, where really the only thing you can declare is U.S. citizen?
No, the application, you just put state citizen, and you put no Social Security number, and they'll give you a passport. They gave me one.
But you have to be a state citizen.
Right, if you say you're a state citizen, you have to be a state citizen. Yes, right here.
You mentioned earlier about your minor children not using the Social Security number. What if you have a minor child or have a minor child who's handicapped and being not knowledgeable on this subject went to the state got help, and in doing so they required all of the Social Security numbers of all your children?
Well, the thing is if they don't use those Social Security numbers, then what happens is they just kind of drop out of the record. See, a minor child can just stop using the number when they reach 18, like the guy said here, under statutory law. It's 21 under common law. If you are handicapped and you want the federal government to take care of you, then they've got a great program. Okay? Yes.
I understand that if you don't use your Social Security number for a year, they put it in an inactive file, and they cannot get it any other way. If they don't have your number, they wouldn't be able to have access to it.
Okay.
If they remain to the computer, they won't find it.
Okay, that may or may not be true. I don't know. But I know that if you don't use your Social Security number, it just goes inactive and eventually it drops off. Yes.
all the credit reporting agencies' offices use credit cards or on Social Security.
Right.
So that's some problem we have. There's some way of moving that because that no longer exists.
Right. Yeah. The thing is credit reports used to use the Social Security number to access it. Now, Social Security number is like number 12 on the list of things that they use to access your credit report. It's because of the 1974 Privacy Act that a lot of people got upset about having to use the Social Security number so much, and so they changed that. But yeah, your Social Security number is on a credit report, and see, I don't believe in credit personally. A lot of people do. That's you know, it's a personal thing. But and so if you pull up a credit report on me, it just says no report found. Okay. But I have a house, and you know, I've bought cars, and I've done a lot of things, and I've borrowed money, but I haven't done it in the traditional means. There's lots of money out there, and lots of people who want to trust good people with loans. So there's a lot of ways to borrow money without going through the regular banks. Yes, right here.
What is the original document mentioned? Also, what was the original
With the Social Security number? The Social Security number has an implied power of attorney. He was asking about the original power of attorney. The Social Security number has an implied power of attorney. And of course, on the Social Security document, you declare under penalty of perjury that you are a U.S. citizen, and you cannot just pitch your driver's license, because it doesn't matter whether you carry it with you or not. An expired driver's license is still a driver's license. A revoked driver's license is still a driver's license. What other kind of driver's license do you have? Suspended driver's license is still a driver's license. Okay? The only thing you can do to get rid of your driver's license is to cancel it.
How do you cancel it?
You send it back to them and ask them to cancel it. You cut your picture off because that's your property. You cut your signature off because that's your property, and you send the rest of it back to them and ask them to cancel it.
So revocation and rescission is not good for driver's license?
What's that?
Revocation and rescission is not good for driver's license?
You just cancel it. You send it back and have them cancel it. Well, the thing is if you're a state citizen, okay, if you're a state citizen and you need a driver's license for work, say you drive a taxi or a bus or a truck or whatever, you know, you can do that. But the thing is now all the states are requiring Social Security numbers for driver's license. Well, if you're a state citizen, you don't have a Social Security number, you see, and so what you do is you get a driver's license for working purposes only, and it's only valid when you're working, you see. It's only valid when you're driving that truck or that bus or whatever, and instead of giving them a Social Security number, you give them your county recorder number when you apply for the form. Yes?
We haven't found any problem getting driver's license for our children without Social Security. We have found a problem in having to work and being accepted in the workforce. How do you combat that?
Well, see, the problem is ignorance, okay? A lot of people just do what they're told because, you know, they just get in line and go right along. And they're told, well, gee, you got to have a Social Security number. Well, it doesn't matter if there's no law that says you have a Social Security number or not. And they go, well, it doesn't matter about the 1974 Privacy Act says that you can't discriminate against someone for not having a Social Security number. But the thing is you could sue them for discriminating against you for not having a Social Security number. But the chances are you still might not get the job. That is a problem with state citizens sometimes. But many times, I'd say probably 60% of the time, it's not a problem. So it just depends on who the employer is that you're going to work for. Yeah, see, actually, state citizens are an advantage to the employer because they don't have to match funds, they don't have to withhold funds, and they don't have to report. See, because the W-8 form relieves them of all those requirements. Yes, right back here.
As a state citizen and a sole proprietor, do I have special rights?
Sole proprietor is a statutory thing. Okay. Okay. Well, the thing is remember when we read private citizens have certain rights, such as the right to engage in business, occupations of common right. Did we talk about occupations of common right? I think I was going through this so fast that we missed that. See, occupations of common rights is very important because just about anything a state citizen can do is an occupation of common right. Let me read that real quick. I blew it by skimming over that. Let's see. Let me find it real quick here.
How many people have signed up for this program?
Like I say, we've got, in 20 states, there's about 250,000 state citizens that we're working with. Okay, on page 27, okay, they're talking about the legislature, and it says, but has no power to declare as privilege and tax for revenue purposes occupations that are of common right. See, if you are a U.S. citizen, you don't have common rights. If you're a state citizen, you have common law rights. And so just about anything you do is an occupation of common right, okay? But if you're a U.S. citizen, you can't have occupations of common right because you don't have access to the common law. And one more thing real quick, it says the a right common, see, they're talking about common law rights again. A right common, this is on page 26, to every citizen, such as the right to own property or engage in business of a character not requiring regulation, cannot, however, be taxed as a special franchise by first prohibiting its exercise and then permitting its enjoyment upon the payment of a certain sum of money. Basically, what they're saying is they can't make something illegal, and then if you pay money, all of a sudden it's legal, okay? And so a right common to every citizen, they're talking about state citizens, not residents, such as the right to own property or engage in business. So if you are a state citizen, you have the right to engage in business. Yes?
Addressing this question, there's a form that the IRS has an SS8 if you want to fill it out. You have people work for you, and you want to classify them as workers. If you're a state citizen, managers speaking, you're not being an employer.
Right.
That's a federal situation. If they're workers, then you cannot, on the penalty, matter of fact, you should be sued for withholding.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. See, the word employee or employer, it was a French word, came over before the turn of the century, and basically what it means is that you have a government burden or duty placed upon you, and so if you are an employee, you're saying that you work for the government or you work for a government-protected business, and so that's what an employee means.
And what is that, a SA8?
SS8, right?
SS8.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get it, pulled out bogey at the
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Yes?
When you talked earlier about the fringe around the flag and the different governments and stuff, how do you determine what kind of court you would have to appear in being a state citizen?
Well, the thing is a lot of courts have that French flag in there. That just means that they can do federal jurisdiction stuff for federal citizens. Okay, but if a state citizen walks into the court, if that is like a court of competent jurisdiction, and it's different in different states, depending on whether it's a superior court or state or whatever, they also have a common law jurisdiction. Like in L.A., they have one courtroom that's specifically set aside, has no French flags, and that courtroom is only for common law. But they don't use it very often.
We have one of the judges here.
Well, it's probably because he hasn't read the law, and they don't teach lawyers the law. What they do is they teach them statutes and how to function in a courtroom.
Not even a lawyer. And what about the law coming up that's going to require our kids by the time they're 2 years old to get a social security number? And that's a state law.
What is that law, though? That law is so you can claim them as dependent on your what, 1040? Yeah, but the thing is what are they going to say? They're saying all residents of the state have to get Social Security numbers for their... No, you're not a resident. So, and they'll never say citizens, okay? Yes?
Hey, that's my question. What happens when they turn 18? I understand that if they use their social number, they have then got to go through the process of becoming a state citizen.
Right. The thing is even if they're using it before, they really should do something about it, because if they're using it, then there's records and files and things that need to be cleaned up. If they don't ever use it, then there's no records, no files to clean up. They can just stop using it, and it'll just automatically fall off and go away. Yes? Well, an attorney is an officer of the court. A lawyer is someone who practices law. Now, you can be a lawyer without being an officer of the court. Okay, you can practice law without being an officer of the court, but most attorneys are lawyers. Okay?
How do you get around the bar association?
Well, there are other bar associations besides the bar association. Okay? Yes?
I have a question for you. There's 2 states that particular intervention.
Yeah, okay.
I've been studying them and I'm confused. We have the original Constitution, and we were accepted in the Union under that Constitution.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Then they came along and created this corporation sometime afterwards, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, when they formed that corporation, that is only, I think, created Nevada revised statutes. Is that correct? That's the part that's not ratified. It's added to the Constitution.
Okay. Well, okay, then what they're doing is they're see, each state does a little different. but basically that part is not. See, one is a statutory status, the other is a common law jurisdiction. So it's
The original common law, all the interim stuff is basically created by the corporation later on.
right.
Therefore, it wasn't re-ratified. They had to resubmit that.
Right. See, Nevada wasn't re-admitted into the Union again, right?
So it's invalid.
No, it's not invalid because that probably coincides with the corporate status of Nevada, and they just tag it on to the other one because they don't know what else to do with it.
So if they use the NRS against me with my offense,
What's that?
if they use the NRS statutes against me, prosecute me for.
Well, you'll notice that it'll say resident in there. If you're not a resident, then how can it mean you, right? If you're a citizen, you're not a resident. You have domicile in the state. You don't have residency. Yes.
What he's saying is, under the statute, by the statute, is correct. But if they come at you with the statute, what is it defend?
The thing is, there is...
It's always the jurisdiction, national jurisdiction.
Right, exactly. Right, the thing is, you can't be a little bit pregnant. Either you are or you're not. You know, it's... See, you know, either you're a state citizen or you're a U.S. citizen. You can't straddle the fence on that issue. Okay? Yes?
Aren't the revised statutes, doesn't the word revised statutes mean something that has to be added later, or something that didn't exist earlier, and it doesn't always have a corporate thing? In other words, like the motor vehicle code was added because in 1864, when Nevada became a state, we didn't have any cars, we didn't have any motor vehicles. Now, those can be added for common law, or are they all
The thing is as a state citizen has the right to travel, okay? And if you do not have the right to travel, then you do not have liberty, okay? And so, because traveling is part of your liberty. And, of course, all state citizens have liberty. And so all state citizens have the right to travel. And you don't have to pay for the privilege of driving, which is a commercial thing, you know, in all states, to have the right to travel. Right. But the thing is see, that's another thing. Is under common law there is no such thing as a criminal. See, criminal is a statutory thing only. Under the common law, you are a thief, or you are a murderer, or rapist, or whatever you are, okay, or you are accused, you know, rapist or murderer or whatever. But you are not a criminal. Criminal is a statutory thing, and under common law, there's no such thing as criminals. Yes. Yeah. Well, they could have been because Rodney King was one of their citizens, and they were state citizens depriving a federal citizen of his civil rights, you see. And so the federal government could have still come in. But if Rodney King was a state citizen, all four of the officers were state citizens, then there would have been no federal trial.
You're victim of a crime, you're a felon. You lose your right to vote as a sovereign citizen. You could lose it.
Well, the thing is sovereign citizens don't have the privilege of voting anyway. Okay, state citizens are electors. Okay, and state citizens are not criminals. They can't be convicted of a felony because there's no federal jurisdiction. You see, and so you know, you could be convicted of common law crimes. You know, if you crash into someone's car and damage his property, you know, that's a common law crime. You damage his property, and so you're liable and you pay for it. You know, that's right. That's, you know, murder, and that's a common law crime. Yes.
If you're currently a United States citizen and you have this Social Security number and you're employed and you decide to become a state citizen, what steps you have to go to notify your employer, and what legal recourse you have if they deny you employment as a result of becoming a state citizen?
1974 Privacy Act, it's a summary judgment. You file a suit against them in the 1974 Privacy Act, and if they fire you because you became a state citizen, summary judgment, they'll get fined and you get the money.
and once you become a state citizen, then they quit withholding taxes from you and you get it all.
Exactly. They stop withholding any Social Security, of course, then they stop matching too. And they stop withholding and they stop reporting because you file a W-8 form, and that W-8 form relieves them of all that responsibility.
Medicare too, they can stop that too.
Right.
W-8, how is that different than the SSA?
SS8 is for the employer to have workers instead of employees.
W-8?
W-8 is for a state citizen to work for a corporation. Yes. Yeah, you can get W-8 forms from the IRS. Yes. I'd like to. I mean, I'd like to get someone who's really sharp and on the ball who wants to become a state citizen. And, yeah, I'd like to do that. Yes.
If you're personally operating under the corporation status or business your own stock, how do you undo all that? Do you first have to become a state citizen and then you can undo all that?
Well, the thing is you can do it either way. You can become a state citizen and then unwind yourself from everything, or you can unwind yourself from everything and then become a state citizen. You can do it either way.
You open yourself up to any type of recourse if you not becoming a state citizen. In other words, you're unwinding it just by certain flags and all the little stuff like the IRS.
Well, you can only unwind so far as a U.S. citizen before you got to become a state citizen. But I mean, a lot of people really have themselves wound up in all kinds of corporations and things that you know, are anyway, whatever. There's lots of things. There's some things that you can do before becoming a state citizen to clean up your act. And there's some things you have to wait until after you're a state citizen to do. Well, I don't offer any legal service. What I offer is legal research and you know, help you know, educate you on the subject of citizenship, and of course we do, you know, have a process that we help people go through. So kind of yes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just before everybody comes, I'd like to invite you, Bob Patterson here. He's put together some action groups and stuff. So you want to tell them where to sign up, if you want to get together, study groups and stuff.
Yeah, if you want to be on a mailing list, you can sign up back there and we'll get a hold of you. Yes?
Is rescinding and revoking a marriage license different from getting a divorce?
Yes, very different. Yeah, and see, that's why I didn't want the ladies to walk out. I hope I made that clear during my presentation, because, see, I'm not divorced, but I did get rid of my marriage license, but of course I still have a marriage certificate which certifies that I am married. So, yes.
Is there a process in order for us to do that?
It's part of the revocation of power of attorney you file at the county recorder's office, and then you have to send that to the appropriate people. Yes, you had a question back here? I guess not. Okay, right here.
Okay, my husband and I operate a small business out of our home, and we use our vehicles to get from place to place on the farm, and we earn a living there.
Right.
Okay, so under the code of the driver's license and stuff, we're using that for commercial purpose.
Well, the thing is it your stuff that you're hauling in your car? Well, then it's not for commercial purposes. If you're charging someone else for hauling their stuff, then that's a commercial purpose. See, but if you're hauling your own stuff in your own car, it's not commercial. Okay? Because you can do a business out of your car. Like I know, there's a lot of state citizens who are farriers. You know what a farrier is? This guy that puts shoes on horses. And they do business out of their truck. They pull their truck up there, and they pull their tools out, and they put the shoes on the horse. They throw the tools back in the truck, and they go to the next place, and they put shoes on horses there. Well, they're not traveling for commercial purposes, because that's all their stuff. You see, they're not hauling someone else's horses around and charging them to haul their horse. Right, it's not the traveling that's making the money, right? Yes.
I go to work and I have not a vehicle around. The
company may require a driver's license for that. If they do, then you get a driver's license that's for work purposes only, and then you wouldn't use it when you're just traveling for your own purposes. Well, the thing is if they don't, you can go, like the judges sometimes they'll take someone's driver's license from them, and then they'll only let them drive for work purposes only, but they can't drive otherwise. Well, see, that'd be the same kind of situation. Right. Yeah.
I was airlines, and I got FAA licenses. What effect will that have?
Well, see, some licenses are not truly licenses. Some licenses are only certificates of competency. Like a contractor's license, for example, is not a license. A license is permission, okay? And if you have to have permission as a sovereign, there's something wrong, okay? And so, a contractor's license is a certificate of competency, and a pilot's license is a certificate of competency, okay? A driver's license is not, it's permission. Okay, and so you have to look at the various licenses to determine whether it's a certificate of competency or whether it's a license. Yes? Well, you just show that you sent your plates back, and you show that you sent your driver's license back, and you're waiting for them to send you something back. And a lot of cops don't want to get in the middle of some administrative fiasco, and they go, yeah, the IRS again, or the DMV again. And I mean, I've had cops, pull me over and talk to me, and they go, yeah, that sounds like the DMV. Have a good day, and walk away. So you show them the letter where you sent your driver's license back. You show them the letter where you sent your plates back and your registration and all that. And you say, and I asked them to send me something, and they haven't sent me anything yet. I'm still waiting. You send it certified, yes. Yeah, you keep the receipt with the letter, a copy of the letter, yes.
If the officer says, well, no license plate, sign here.
Then you go ahead and sign it. Go ahead and sign it. But, well, no, you sign it under duress or under protest. Because, well, see, without prejudice, that is under the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC 1-207. And if you're a state citizen, you are not a commercial entity, and you cannot use commercial codes for your protection, okay? If you are a U.S. citizen, then yeah, you can do that. You can write without prejudice, UCC 1-207, and you can use that to preserve your civil rights. But as a state citizen, you're protesting that they even gave you the ticket, that they even stopped you to begin with. And then, of course, you go into court, and under protest, you protest the whole thing, and then you tell them who you are and what you're doing, and a lot of times they just go, oh, we're sorry, and they dismiss the case. Of course, they don't want egg on their face, and so you have to do it in a polite way, and you don't want to be arrogant with the judge, because then he tries to slam dunk you, and you don't want that happen.
Okay, but I mean, you go down and say not guilty. You put up $100, $500 bail, or whatever it is, and you go back and forth. You have to put that money down, or they throw you in jail.
Most of the state citizens that I know of haven't had to post bail. They OR them. They just go in, and the thing is, you file your pleadings, okay, and you file a common law demurrer, and then you set up a thing, and you argue the demurrer. And if they deny the demurrer, then they say, how do you plead? And then if you get to that point, you go ahead and you plead not guilty, and then they set it up for trial. And what's happened with a lot of these trials, in fact, last Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday, not this past week, but last week on Tuesday, one of those farriers I was telling you about that shoes horses went in to court, and he was there for trial, and he filed a motion of impartiality with the judge, and this impartiality motion had to say that he was a neutral party in this deal, and that he was not the prosecutor, and he had to say under penalty of perjury he didn't have a driver's license, and what judge didn't have a driver's license, and so anyway, So he gave it to the bailiff, and the bailiff gives it to the clerk, and the clerk says, well, we can't enter this in the court records until the judge sees it. So she takes it back into the judge's chambers, and the judge is back there 45 minutes trying to figure out what to do with this thing. And so then he checks with the district attorney, and then comes back into the courtroom and says, oh, you won't need this. In the meantime, the cop walks in the courtroom, and he's sitting down right across the aisle from this guy that shoots horses, right? And he recognized the cop, and he waved to him. The cop, they exchanged highs and whatever. And so they're sitting there, and the judge comes in the courtroom and says, well, you won't need this motion of impartiality because the officer's not going to be in the courtroom today. And so he looks over at the officer and says, I guess you're not here. And he says, this state citizen thanks the court, and he walks out. And so, and that is just one case, but there's lots of funny stories like that. Yeah.
I'm surprised the court didn't go after him for selling horseshoes then. He was performing a service, but in actuality, he was selling horseshoes to the person who had a horse.
Yeah, well, you can see, like there's a guy that has a big, giant semi-truck, okay, and he goes into the field and loads up all this hay on the truck, okay? And he pays for the hay, and then he takes that hay to another state, goes right by the weigh stations without stopping, because this is his hay. No one else is paying him to haul it. This is his hay. And he takes it someplace else, and then he sells it to someone else, and they pay for the hay, and that you get it off his truck, and it's no longer his hay, and then he goes back and gets more. And so, see, because he's selling the hay, see, when he was moving the hay, it was his hay. You see, if he's moving it for someone else and using the roads to make money, then that's the commercial purpose.
That he didn't personally grow, or they weren't even chickens, or something to do with them.
Well, it doesn't matter. He didn't grow the hay. He bought the hay from someone else. It wouldn't matter if he bought horseshoes, okay? Loaded his truck up with horseshoes, took it to another state, and then unloaded the horseshoes and sold the horseshoes. You see, it doesn't matter. If you're charging someone else for hauling their stuff, then it's for commercial purpose. If you're hauling persons or property for hire or compensation, then that's a commercial purpose. Okay? Yes? What's that? Commercial plates in your trucks? Well, you can't do that until you become a state citizen. But once you become a state citizen, thing is, a state citizen might want to get paid for hauling stuff around, and if you do, then you have to, participate in that DMV thing, okay? But you do that only when you are for a higher compensation, not when you're traveling with your family to church, okay? You have to get the license where it says for working purposes only, okay? Yeah.
You mentioned that
that is, yeah, because you go in on a special appearance, and then when you plead, then it becomes a general appearance. Generally speaking, you don't want to make general appearances, but sometimes the courts, the courts don't want it to be obvious. Like Richard's been trying to set a precedence with his case, okay? But the courts will not try these cases. See, what they do is they go to trial, and then they dismiss for lack of prosecution. And then they say, oh, well, the cop didn't show up. And that's what happens all the time. But it happens every time. The cop never shows up. In fact, one time we tried, well, let's see what happens if we don't file any pretrial motions. Just go in, plead not guilty, don't say anything, and then we walk into the trial, and then file the motions orally right there in the trial. So they had the DA there, and the cop there, and the judge, and he's filing these motions orally right there in the trial. And then the DA goes over and whispers to the cop in his ear and says something to the cop. And then a minute later, the cop gets up and walks out of the courtroom. And then the DA goes, Your Honor, it appears that the officer's not in the courtroom. I move to dismiss for lack of prosecution. Yes. Yes.
throughout the country. But at some point, when there's maybe 5 million or 10 million or X number of million, there's going to be some kind of retaliation by the federal government. Have you anticipated anything like that?
Well, the thing is it's, you know, it's like if you have a child and your child's gone run amok and you try and discipline your child, then yeah, you could have a rebellious child that would try and do something to you. And you're right, they may, you know, call in the UN peacekeeping forces or something. But the thing is if you are not going to take the mark of the beast, then it's not going to matter whether you're a state citizen or not. State citizenship is a way of preserving your rights in the midterm until they come right out and start shooting people, okay? And see, bullets are addressed to who they may concern, okay? And so, you know, they don't stop to check to see if you're a state citizen or not, okay? and so it doesn't matter if you are a U.S. citizen and you go along with the program, and then when they start, you know, issuing the mark, and then all of a sudden you say, oh no, I'm not going to do that, they're going to lump you in with everyone else anyway. So, but state citizenship is a way of. See, a lot of people are getting real frustrated and angry, and they, you know, they want to take their guns and do something about it. And state citizenship is a way that you can actively preserve your birthright, reclaim your birthright, preserve your freedoms in a legal, peaceful way without getting violent. And so that's what we're doing, is because we want people to do things in a legal, peaceful way and not be violent. And so that's what state citizenship is all about, is to provide a way for people to do that is by going back and reclaiming their birthright. Yes?
Well, that means federal firearms laws have no bearing.
Right, well, because the thing is
automatic weapons, hand grenades, explosives.
Well, the thing is if you read Title U.S. 10 and U.S. 32, if you are a state citizen between the age of 18 and 45 under U.S. 10, or 18 and what is it, 65, then you are part of the unorganized militia.
We have six things this way.
Right. But no, you're part of the unorganized militia. It has nothing to do with the reserves. Okay. See, it's different. Because
Well, actually, the Carolinas, like everything else, is not part of the National Guard, not the state militia. Because if you have National Guard, you don't have state militia.
well, right, but there still is the unorganized militia for state citizens. But they look around there and they go, well, gee, we don't see any state citizens, so I guess we don't have an unorganized militia anymore. But sure enough, these state citizens are popping up everywhere. And under law, you are bound by law to have the weapons that are in common use at the time if you're a state citizen. And so whatever's in common use at the time, you're bound by law as a state citizen to show up when needed with those weapons in your possession. Yes? If you can do it yourself, you don't need us. If you do want us to help you, Richard's program is $795, and that gets you the packet, and that gets you support of the service center, and you can you know, download stuff off of his BBS. If you want to do it yourself, then you can download stuff off of Richard McDonald's BBS and get the information yourself, and you know, do it yourself. You know, no, he's in Granada Hills, north of LA. We need to wrap this up. What we can do is probably talk a little bit more in the parking lot, but I think we're going to cut the tapes off here. And is there any other questions? Thanks.
I was taking notes that went by real fast. Your third step in revoking your Social Security number.